ni ceceni ya Inooro TV.
Nwega muno na weko nogo kamenya ni hindi ya tafarira ya kimuri no mbere gutarite muneroge wa studio Kenya Bengo thomere mohoro maitu na njira guhema ithaa riri ria thaa ira tugikundi kia memba a ruriri rwa Maathai ni matafaniti igongona ri mwana gukira rika riria rirehete hamwe rika ria Ildashi kuma matura matiganite mwena wa Kajiado ya gatagati mwena ici ni ithomithitio mweke wao wa ona itemi riria mafataire kunyita ruriri-ini rwa ukabi Wambui wa Macharia ni mwandiki wa mohoro na no horo cio makiria
ni mutugo na unduire wa ruriri rwa ukabi gutabania igongona ona gukungwira imwana ikiuma rika rimwe guthie ringi rita riri igongona riri riri imwana cia rika ria Ildashi na iria maithe ni marika ria Ilkishiru marika maya maria ni kuma matura-ini ma Loyongalani na Ildamat Kajiado ya gatagati athuri aria macaguritwo gutabania igongona riao magitariria bata wario hari kumenyerera unduire wao.
Ruriri gutuika rika rimwe retagwo Nyanguro kogwo magutuika rika rimwe marikaraga hamwe maririaga hamwe ni mathomithio guikara hamwe kuriaga hamwe na riu ni marathie next stage ni marenda gutuika athuri.
Hawezi wao msichana wa kutoka katika hii group hapana mpaka wewe msichana katika ile group ya mbele ama katika ile group itakuwa nyuma. So hiyo ndio inaofanya hawa watu tuwe hapa. Tudumishe mila, tupatane, tuputue na heshima, tujuane, wajuane kwa sababu mambo ya shule inapoteza mila.
Imwana iria irekirwo igongona riri na kurathimithio ni cia gatagati wa miaka 13 nginyagia 24 na makoragwo mahumbitwo matonyo ma unduire wao kuona ni makinyitie miaka ya kumenya bata wa guikarania na thayo ona gitio.
Na kuna wazee wa rika fulani kutoka 50 years and above ndio wanakuanga wanaenda kuchagua. Wakipata kuna wazee fulani ambayo ndio wanashika. Kama ule alikuwa anavaa black, huyo on the left side, na huyo kwa nyeusi, ni watu ambao left and right. Na ndio special watu ambao wamejulikana kwamba hakuna siku watakosea vijana. Juu ni watu wao. Ni watu wa heshima, wamefuatwa mpaka ndani yao familia wako sawa.
Kama umeona wakati alikuwa anakula hiyo nyama, alikuwa namba 2. Ule ambaye toa ng'ombe kuwachinjia hawa watu ndio namba 1 na chief anakuwa namba 2. So huyo mtu ndiye atakuwa anasimamia hawa watu hata katika nidhamu. Mtu akipatikana hana nidhamu ni huyo chief ndiye anamhukumu na atamrekebisha.
Hamwe na maundu maria mekagwo igongona-ini riri ni kurianira nyama ona kunyuanira thakame ya ng'ombe iri ngothi-ini ari ta njira ya kuonania urumwe gatagati kao.
Kwa sherehe kama hii inatafuta ng'ombe nono ambapo iko na rangi yake ambayo ina kala mingi ambao wenyewe wa baba yao wamechagua ni hii na inakuanga tu one color. Hii ng'ombe inafaa kuchinjwa leo na imalizike leo. Hakuna nyama itabaki kwa hii ng'ombe leo mpaka matumbo.
Pia wanafunzwa mambo ya kukaa pamoja. In fact ukiona nyama wanapewa nyama moja wote, you know, ni kama njia ya kuwafunza kushare, you know. So wanapata kwamba sisi kama Masai huwa tunashare vitu mingi, you know, socialism.
Mmoja wanaokula ni kumaanisha umoja. Ile maji walikuwa wanakunywa pamoja ni kumaanisha umoja. So hawa sasa nilika ambao wametolewa, wale wengine wadogo wakikuja watakuwa shemeji yao na wale wako mbele watakuwa nao shemeji yao.
Ona aria maumite gicigo-ini giki no magathamira miene ingi ya bururi matitigitwo na thutha no mihang'o ino riu irerikana ni cenjetie kuona na hau kabere mathiaga githaka na magaikara ihinda iraya no riu ni maheaga anake aya kanya ga guthoma na kumatha ugi.
Sababu elimu ni kitu bora na pia ndo manake tunajaribu kuwa fix kwa wakati fupi ili tuweze kusherekea, ili tuweze pia kudumisha mila yetu, ili tusiweze kubakisha nyuma.
Hebu kufuata timetable ya shuleni. Na unaona wote hakuna ule mtoto wako nje isipokuwa ule amemaliza university wala form 4. So ni watoto wanasoma. Ukiangalia hapa hakuna ati ule amekaa uwarani eti kwa muda. Hii ni mambo tu ya mila tumetengeneza.
Girifo tera Inoro TV reto rekwa ni wa boy wa Masharia.
Mundu gitwa wa Masharia ni ndwa ripoti iyo yaku. Ripoti yaku ni yatutirira mohoro maito na njira nguhi ma ithaa riri mangi no uria meguthi na mbere gutukijira thini wa tabareno ya Kimuri iria ndenda guthi mwena rongo wa studio ithacamani na mundu gitwa Mike Jenga. Mike Jenga, good morning.
Good morning, my brother. Horo cine.
Ndirakuona wega kuhana atia
we urokire nguriuku
ithio turokaga tene guku
ithio tugioka
tondu njona ni mwaragia na coaches ire hardship allowance kidogo
tomareke ngwire masio mathaa
ugatuheo hardship allowance
masio mathaa ni maritu
kwanja riu niguo kunyitana kidogo tondu githurano-ini gutire na mathaa wira nyi ni muri koraga riu na nyi ni mugukira
githurano-ini ni ithuothe tukorwo twi kuu no tugacokeria Ngai ngatho
niguo
na gukiragwo ati we are up to the task
niguo na ndirire waihura kire itagwo ati tumiraga twamwirire a buckle up it's gonna be bumpy
buckle up ni gukorwo kwi bumpy kidogo
riu
no Ngai akirio giti-ini
umuthira ndagutwira atia
umuthi ndenda twaririe ciĩgie wonjoria na siasa kaingĩ thĩinĩ wa bũrũri ũkoraga rĩrĩa siasa ciokĩrĩria na mũno mũico wa mĩaka ĩyo rĩrĩa kũroka gĩthurano ũgakora wonjoria naguo nĩ wathiĩ thĩ kahinda gaka tarĩu tũraria andũ aingĩ mũno biacara nyingĩ nĩ ngoretwo ngĩona emails nyingĩ irathiĩ na mbere mũno nginya makambuni marĩa ma mabũrũri ma nanja makĩanjia kwĩra andũ mwĩhũgei tarĩu wiki ĩno na wiki ĩno ĩngĩ tũrĩ all through nginya rĩrĩa tũkũrĩkia andũ aingĩ mekorwo work from home no nĩ tũkũrora tũngĩhota atĩa kũmixaga wonjoria na biacara na atirĩrĩ wana biacara aingĩ nĩ marerwo ũkai ona inyuĩ mũingĩre thĩinĩ wa kĩndũ gĩkĩ gĩgwĩtwo siasa
na ndĩamenya ta ona we nĩ wandikanĩte nĩ njũ nĩ mũkinyaga handũ mũkamba gũkinya mbia kahinda gaka cigĩrĩ na nĩkĩ gĩkaga ũguo by the way
ngwĩre hakinya handũ tondũ wambe ũririkane kahinda gaka one wĩici nĩ wamba ũgathiĩ igũrũ mũno wa kerĩ kĩũndũ gĩothe kĩrĩkĩka kĩrĩkuruhanio na siasa
correct
kana nĩ kũiywo wĩirwo kana nĩ atĩa wĩkire kũrĩkuruhanio na siasa koguo kwambaga ũkamba ona nĩ twambaga nginya kwĩra andũ tigaigũka ũgatinatinia andũ arĩa flow ya andũ arĩa maraingĩra kũu
correct
nginya gĩthurano kĩu kĩrĩke tondũ again twĩ bũrũri wĩna gĩthurano kĩngĩrehe ngũĩ any day nĩwendaga kwamba kweheria traffic ĩyo
thank you muno kĩharo nĩ gĩaku mũndũ gĩtwo Jenga
asanti na nĩ ngatho nyingĩ mũno rũcinĩ rũrũ mwĩroreri witũ handũ hothe ũratwĩrora ũrĩ kuma ng'ongo ciothe ciumaga huho karibu sana thĩinĩ wa tabarĩra ya Kimuri nĩ ceceni ya Inoro TV rũcinĩ rwa mũthĩ ũtoguo waigua ngĩra mũthuri ti Njoroge tũgũkorwo tũkĩarĩrĩria icio ciĩgie wonjoria na ũhũri wa siasa he mũthuri njĩrĩ gatene mũno
Niguo.
Karibu.
Thank you muno Mike Jenga.
Karibu sana thĩinĩ wa tabarĩra ya Kimuri. Ũrĩ thayo?
Ndĩ thayo. Na Naivasha tikuru. Na twĩrĩgaine gatene we. Na no tũrakĩhũra siasa kũrĩa na biacara. Toguo uga maũndũ maya mothe nĩ magĩrĩirwo nĩ gũtukanio. Nĩguo gakĩmenya ũrĩa gũikarĩte. Tondũ ngĩgĩ separate siasa na politics. Todo siasa mbaya politics na kile siasa mbaya na biacara igathũka koguo maũndũ mau mothe no mũhaka matukane koguo na nyamba ngĩgeithie mwĩroreri wothe wa Inoro harĩa rĩ na njĩrĩ andũ a Naivasha twĩ hamwe na nĩ tũgũteretanga
na Naivasha nĩ njũĩ na ũracaria gacũng'o fulani
nĩ ndĩrũgamĩte gĩtĩ kĩa mbunge Naivasha constituency na ndĩ mũrengo wa Azimio na kĩama gĩakwa nĩ kĩa ODM koguo niĩ ndĩ mũndũ ũrĩa wĩtĩkĩtie na handshake
okay nĩ njũĩ nĩ tũkũrikĩra mũno he kĩũria gĩthĩnjia njũria haha atĩ nĩkĩ gĩtũmaga andũ aingĩ ahũri a biacara hakinya nĩ kahinda gaka andũ makamba kũnyihanyihia nginya andũ arĩa maramarutĩra wĩra na nĩ njũĩ wĩ thĩinĩ wa security mũno nĩ njũĩ nĩ gũtwĩra nĩ gũtwerethera ihinda gatarĩ kũnene Anthony
yes sir
Kirori
kaga mũno horo waku
karibu sana
asante sana ndacokia ngatho na ndagĩthia andũ othe arĩa marora gĩbindi gĩkĩ gĩthĩkai na mũno andũ a Juja thiĩ na mbere kũnyitĩrĩra ground na ũguo wauga ũngĩrora Proverbs Nĩ 29 verse 2 yugaga atĩrĩrĩ, andũ mathura andũ oru maisha magakorwo nĩ moru, no metĩkĩra guthura andũ ega nĩ magakorwo blessed. Mekũrathimwo.
Nĩ tũgũkũria gĩtũmi kĩa wĩcirie kwamba gũtigana ta rĩu kũrĩa Juja magũtaga
Kĩrori wa Benjo,
kũrĩ Kĩrori wa Benjo,
no rĩtwa kamili nĩ Anthony Kĩrori Ndung'u. Mũtigathiĩ kũrora Kĩrori wa Benjo kwa ballot, mũkarora Anthony Kĩrori Ndung'u.
Anthony Kĩrori Ndung'u. No reke gwa kaida gaka twambe twaririe Kĩrori wa Benjo ũrĩa tũguo tondũ wa kaũndũ wĩkaga ũgatiga maũndũ marĩa mega ũreka ũthiĩ ũkaingĩrie siasa-inĩ nĩkĩ?
Manjĩtaga Kĩrori wa Benjo tondũ gũkũ Kenya thirikari ya Kenya ndĩgĩgũtĩkĩria ũteme mũtĩ ũthondeke benjo. Koguo benjo ciothe cia mbaũ nĩ imported. Kuga rĩrĩa tũra import nĩkĩ tũreka? Tũra import jobs. Tũgati rĩrĩa ũragũra benjo ya mbaũ nĩ gũkũria tũrakũria other countries. Koguo rĩrĩa ndamenyire ũguo about 204 205 ngĩririkana twĩ primary school twĩrirwo iratathi rumaga kũ? Koguo ũrĩa ndeciria nĩ atĩrĩrĩ, njoe iratathi ndĩcokie iratathi rĩtuĩke mbaũ,
koguo kũrecycle
kũrecycle kana reverse engineering no thathondeke kĩ benjo. Rĩu teno ĩno nĩ made not just in Kenya but made in Juja from paper,
all the way from Juja fine
from paper. Koguo na njĩra nguhĩ reke njuge I'm what you call an innovative manufacturer, yani ngerigia gũthondeka indo itarĩ ciathondekwo Kenya.
Nĩ gũtwĩra kĩrĩa kĩratũma wĩcirie kwehera innovation-inĩ yaku ũke wĩingĩrie maũndũ-inĩ ma siasa. Gũkũ tinde ũkĩrumwo nĩ andũ, tinde gũkũ nginya kahĩ ga thiri gakũrũgamio no nginyagia ũrũgame, gatirĩ kura na no nginyagia ũrĩrũgama. Nĩ gũtwĩra bata mũthuri karibu
tũtiĩrĩganĩte
na pole ngucia nĩ wĩrĩga kũra ũgakora itarĩ around.
Nĩguo
pole sana.
No nĩguo nĩ mĩhang'o ya
nĩ kũhang'a
na no nginya andũ makĩhang'e.
Karibu geithia eroreri
Kenya njoe kanya gaka geithia eroreri othe a Inoro na njokie ngatho mũno nĩ ũndũ wa kanya gaka mũtũhete gũka kwarĩria rũrĩrĩ rwitũ. Wa mbere tũmenye atĩ wonjoria na biacara nĩ itwaranaga. Niĩ ndirarũgama gĩtĩ ngũcia nĩ kĩcio maikara mwena ũcio na ndũgama njikara mwena no tikuga tondũ ndirarũgama gĩtĩ atĩ tũtirĩ na maoni maitũ marĩa twĩ namo na agenda citũ iria tũrenda kũhũranĩra andũ aitũ, tondũ thutha wa siasa ici gĩkĩ nĩ kĩgeranio kĩrekwo na kĩgeranio andũ othe mageka mweri 9 wa 8 meka kĩgeranio kĩũru mageka gĩgacokerwo thutha wa mĩaka ĩyo 5 nĩguo we ũngĩka thi gũthurana wakorwo gũthura rangi wa kĩama na ndũnamenya wathura kĩ nĩ mĩaka ĩyo 5 ũgacoka gũcokera kĩgeranio kĩu. Koguo ũndũ ũrĩa wĩho gĩtũmi kĩnene mũno Mike na ithuĩ twĩyumĩrĩtie tũkaka atĩ nĩ kuonia andũ atĩrĩrĩ, no korwo wĩ mũtongoria na ndũrĩ mbunge no maũndũ ũngĩhota gũtwarithia ũmateng'erie kana ũmakinyĩrithie mbunge arĩa mekũingĩra mbunge tũkaruta wĩra twĩ hamwe, atongoria arĩa me mbunge na arĩa matarĩ mbunge. Bũrũri ũyũ noguo wĩ atĩ andũ othe mathiaga mbunge na arĩa angĩ mathiaga county representative. Atongoria aya angĩ matigaga na gũkũ tũrenda gũcenjia mwonekeo ũcio, tũkorwo atĩ arĩa amwe tũtingĩiganĩra ithuothe mbunge, arĩa marathiĩ mbunge na arĩa megũtigwo tũkaruta wĩra tondũ tũrarutĩra Wanjikũ.
Ũgata twĩre inyuĩ mwĩta ahũri a biacara kĩmako kĩanyu gĩũkaga nĩkĩ rĩrĩa twakinya mwaka wa gĩthurano? Nĩkĩ gĩthiaga na mbere? Nĩkĩ kĩrĩa kĩngĩ?
Kĩnjuge tondũ taniĩ ndĩ chairman niĩ ndũgamĩrĩire matatũ. Niĩ ndũgamĩrĩire matatũ. Na ndũgamĩrĩire matatũ rĩ, ta rĩu tũngĩthiĩ tuge tumthiĩ Naivasha kwaya nĩ gũkora mũthuri chairman wa Kasese, mũthuri mũrata wakwa no tũrũgamĩrĩire nakũu Bwana Mungai, ũkamũkora hĩndĩ ya wĩra wa hĩngĩcana ngari icio ciao cithiaga nakũu kwa mahũa iria ithiaga nakũu ciothe na kwĩna tribe nyingĩ mũno cia mĩhĩrĩga yothe. Ũgakora hĩndĩ ya ngari icio cia hũrũ icio rĩ, ene ngari nĩo macokaga kũripĩa ngari icio, gũtirĩ insurance irũgamagĩra, gũtirĩ kĩndũ gĩka na ngari ũndũ gũthiĩte siasa-inĩ kana kĩndũ. Ũgakora mathĩna marĩa maingĩ andũ aingĩ ningĩ andũ a matatũ mageragĩra nĩ tondũ hĩndĩ ya kũroimwo siasa-inĩ iria ciekwo nĩ wana siasa kana ciathirũkwo nakũu, andũ arĩa marĩ korwo mena damage ĩrĩa nene gwekĩka kaũndũ kanini koru nĩ andũ arĩa me barabara-inĩ mena ngari, na ngari ya matatũ ndĩhana personal, ndĩigagwo mũciĩ. Koguo ngari ya matatũ na ya marori ya marori ciothe itũraga barabara na icio nĩ cikoragwo cia mbere gukorana na mathina maria makoragwo makiumĩra nĩ ũndũ wa siasa na wakerĩ wona ningĩ economy ria thũka no makoragwo maria mbere ningĩ kuhitwo kana kuhutio nĩ thĩna ũcio wa economy. Ta ingĩ kuhe example he muthuri weho wetagwo Bwana Mwangi arutaga wĩra wa makirini ngari ciao nĩ iria cia kuoya makirini no acio na citagwo nyahururu andũ acio marirayaga hĩndĩ ĩrĩa economy rĩrĩega tondu okorwo nĩ Safaricom ĩgĩkĩra generator nĩwe kũmekĩrĩra wakorwo nĩ kĩndũ kĩagwa handũ nĩ ngari ĩyo gũthiĩ yoe kũngiumĩra kaũndũ hĩndĩ ya wana siasa mekuo ngari ĩyo ĩkorererwo handũ ĩthũkio kanyamũ kamwe tu ga kuoya ngari ĩyo ndĩngĩoya koguo wonjoria kana wĩra wa biacara na siasa nĩ itwaranaga na nĩkĩo na ithuĩ kahinda gaka tũrenda kũingĩrĩra kuo tondu tene tũroigaga atĩrĩrĩ tũraikaraga handũ tũkamerorera tugetera matwĩte handũ tuikare thĩ tutirenda ũguo in fact tũraikara thĩ nao ona rĩu tũithi na mbere gũkwĩra atĩ ithuĩ twĩna maũndũ maitũ marĩa tũrenda atĩ nĩguo ũke ũtũre nĩ ũrenda tũgwĩkire ũũ rĩ waingĩra rĩ ũgatwĩkĩra atĩa ũhoro ũrarĩ wa mbere tũreka tũgatwarwo handũ tũkaihingĩrwo kanyũmba ta gaka andũ makiuma harĩa makanengerwo merĩ andũ tũroiga tũtikwenda ng'ano icio ng'ano cia rita rĩrĩ nĩ gũikara thĩ ũire andũ atĩrĩrĩ demand citũ nĩ ici mathĩna maitũ marĩa tũrĩte nĩ maya nĩ ũkũhota gũtatua mathĩna maya tondu wathiĩ thĩinĩ wa industry ciothe kana kũrĩ andũ othe nĩ ũrakora mena mathĩna no mathĩna maregaga kũhutĩka tondu tũheaga MP kura nĩ ũndũ wa mbia no tũtimaheaga nĩ ũndũ wa agenda ĩrĩa magoka nayo nĩ tũrenda gũcenjia andũ tumene turenda kurora agenda ĩrĩa ũngĩũka nayo rĩ nĩ gũtũfit tondu ngĩkorwo ndũĩ kĩndũ ũgatũhe rĩ kana kĩndũ tũgacoka gũcokanĩria ritani rĩ we na onokio tuhe mbeca rĩ mbeca icio ndũnateithia raia na watiga nginya wanji kũrĩa wĩ hau tondu ngĩkorwo barabara tũrakwĩra nĩ ũgahota gũtũtetera barabara ĩno ĩtũraga na marima ĩthondekwo ũgatwĩra ĩhĩ tũikare thĩ haha ĩ tondu kwĩna mbeca ingĩ tũkaruta na gũkũ tũcitware na gũkũ igũrũ ĩ na ndũratwĩra na formula nĩ ĩrĩkũ ũgatũmĩra we nĩ gũtwĩra watwĩra ũrĩa kũhana ukanjie mũcemanio ukanjie kuma hĩndĩ ya wanjirie nginya hĩndĩ ĩyo rĩrĩka ndũnera andũ kamwĩkĩra ũũ ngamũgereria haha na manifesto yako nĩ ĩno rĩu manifesto ya Kenya nĩ ici si munaona Uhuru si munaona alifanya si munaona walisalimiana rĩu ndũrera andũ atĩrĩrĩ ĩgĩsalimiano warĩ bunge na Kenya nzi ntũ nĩ gũkorwo tũkĩũria atĩ we tondu ũrarĩ bunge rĩ ũrahetũkirie mũjadala ũrĩkũ we tondu ũrarĩ bunge rĩ ũraproposire Kenya nzi mena mathĩna maya makoragwo tau ona ũhoro ũrona wa mbembe ikuagwo nĩ marori marori maya rĩ nĩ marori nĩ gũthĩna mathĩnĩte mathĩnĩ nĩkĩ tondu kwĩna nyamũ yarehirwo ĩtagwo axle single axle nĩ ngari ĩthimagwo axle kamwe ngari ũgakora atĩ ĩkĩrĩtwo mbembe nĩ ũrona he ngari tarũ yanyitĩtwo ya kĩoro nona igucagia kĩoro kiuma gĩtengera yakinya harĩa mũrorongo rĩ ĩkithimwo ya mbere kĩhĩtũka tondu nĩ kĩoro gĩthia na ngari ĩkarĩte ong'ethe
nĩ liquid
nĩ yathie yaikio ũguo rĩ gĩkũra rĩ ithe kĩoro ĩtĩecoka thutha ĩyũka axle ya kerĩ ĩkĩro ya kerĩ ndĩkĩti yathie ningĩ ya thutha ĩkĩro atĩrĩrĩ mũrigo ũrĩa ũkuĩtwo haha rĩ nĩ mũingĩ mũno ũkarigwo atĩ ũngĩra mũndũ ũcio ũkokie kĩoro kĩu ahũre gĩthiĩ mbere kana gĩthiko no ngari ndĩkĩonyetie weight kwoguo rĩ kwĩ maũndũ mangĩ meho abungera maragwo kana registrators arĩa mararĩ kuo maragwo nĩ gũkorwo magĩka kana gũtetera Wanjiku tondu wĩra wa gũthiĩ bunge ti gũthiĩ kũrĩa atĩ gũke wĩra nĩ ũraheana mbeca cia CDF kana ũrĩa ũkaga basarĩ in fact na ingĩhona nginya bunge ya mathiĩ makope na mabũrũri marĩa mangĩ ma develop mathiĩte na mbere mwana agĩrwo nĩ kũheo na basi arwo na beo rĩ athiĩ cukuru akaroketerwo mbeca ciake aingĩra harĩ ingĩrĩra cukuru ũguo o yarĩ ingĩra kana kũingĩra academy mwana wothe akaroketerwo mbeca ake wĩ ũturũkana wĩ central wĩku makerwo atĩrĩrĩ twa budget ya ciringi ngiri o mwana 20 na mwaka ũmwe rĩ tũkũmũhe 60,000 kana ũgũtwara aku akada we watwara aku academy
o harĩ gathirĩra
kũrĩtwaragwo 40,000 we 60 ha uri ũngĩ nake atwara mwana wake ya cukuru ya public rĩ ithondekwo na kĩrathi kĩhana academy atĩ watwara kũrĩa ndũrĩ kĩndũ rĩu nĩ ũkũ choose wone ũkwenda gũkũ kana ũkwenda gũkũ riu guku kurekagiririo ugakora mabati maiki uria wathomaga ite nginya cia mbukite iri o uguo na cukuru ni heagwo mbia kwina ngamo ni kurekwo atia no gutikoragwo mundu ukakuria atiriri cukuru ino tondu yahana o ri tuhe ibuku ria mathabu maya ma miaka 5 koguo gukaga mundu agoka koiga ati ni ngaka cukuru ino aingira agakora maundu ni maingi na abunge nao ni maigirirwo marigo mingi muno kwa uhiki ni arendwo athie uthoni ni arendwo athie mathiko ni arendwo athie no mutongoria yo tio kitumi kire giatumire mutongoria thurwo ni twagiru nginya ni gukendukitie andu aitu bwana njenga mamenye atiriri niki gitumaga mutongoria thurwo niki urona Uhuru arererwo mbembe na kutwara na MP marari kuo maraturite ku moyo ati wega muno ati nacio mbemberi iria turagio no kuko tukirima bururi uyu uri tware na nyamu itago ngarano igiathire nyamu no usetwe giasetirwo ta maburi ta South Africa kuri muoko aturanio mweno tondu tugianaga na ng'ombe na mburi na irio cia ng'ombe na nguku kwirwo irio ici kuri handagwo irio cia nguku peke yake irio ni indo cia nguku peke yake andu a marori ni mona wira muno naguo kwirwo ni irio cia andu cia kuria bebe peke yake muno ungi naguo kwirwo ni irio ta matunda peke yake gucoke gwakwo manyumba andu acio na macukuru na barabara cia rami ciako andu ara maikara Nairobi goku Siramu ine na Keri marutwo guku matwarwo ku tia kwirera andu ni ati kwina bottom up ingi maruta na guku matwana we no wirire andu marute wira he president wa Tanzania the late Magufuli ngiri atiriri mutongoria wothe ukwiragira kindu na ndarakwira rogakiona ni arakuhenia
rogamira hau tirevo muthuri ndarenda gite icio murenda no athikiriria ni arakwira outrightly nie danger ndimwiroreire inyue murenda ite icire oh no niguo turenda mikakati yanyu ni iri kumwita
ni agenia muno tondu nguga na aumite itura riri ritu ria Mount Kenya Central ti andu ingi mareciria uguo tondu andu itu othe matuire ndarama ni Uhuru mahitia ni thirikari na makoretwo bunge gitumi giakwa gia kuga ndugame giti kia bunge kia Naivasha ni maundu mau igua uga tondu uria twekire ona nginya parties stiri structure na stikoragwo kiriirwo gamirire wonaga sikoragwo cie vieko parties ici nyingi ya kuoya tongoria na nikio ronire Jubilee yarikia wira wayo ni reherire kuragia na UDA na iciama ici ngira nje gutengera stiri ideologies iria tuguko tugifuata hena kiha muno tondu tongoria aria twina waingi uria mekite mena maheni maingi muno na Wanjiku nake agetikira kuhenio ni undu wa bia icio igua kiuga ati umuthi uyu mundu mwathie kwaria arakuria ni uraneki niki ura china jeshi kini ogishina jeshi kini umuthi ri jeshi yo ona nduna mihe manifesto yaku tondu manifesto thaici kuri andu ingi na muno gituro giki gitu ni kirio kuruta handu ha gukorwo ukiuria manifesto yaku ona ni ngeragia muno gathie ngamahe no ko ni point 3 cia manifesto ndina 11 point agenda no ugakora no hota kumahe ono ko ni mugwanja kana inyanya
ni mathikagiriria mena batana
ungimaigeria handu ri ungimaigeria handu ni makuigua ungimaigeria handu mathikiririe na makajia kuona ni ma tona watongoria ria twinao taruta kuria gwitu aria tundirona aingi turacindana ringi mundu akauga nie ndaguire maita 3 ndanoka namba 2 maita 2 koguo rita riri ni riakwa riu nie tondu hindi yo ndirenda munjiguire tha ngakiuria Wanjiku wa kuria gwakwa mundu ndanakwira atiriri ati ngari ikiuma mai ikiuma kundu gwitagwo Masai Mara ri rahuthukira mai mahiu igatiga andu mai mahiu meroreire uguo makigeithania uguo ati no mwake Masai Market ha hatiri mundu ukite no horo ucio ni ndirokire naguo ndiramera andu mai mahiu mwahe giti ntukuhingura Masai Market ha ataria makiuma Masai Mara magoka makagura curio iria na kiaya marugamite na aria maracora mathondekete ki ku atumia matumite ciondo mahote gwika atia gutuma ciondo matware ku ati uko ni group cia atumia cia nyitana ni cia tuma ciondo ri hena selling point na hau no ho ngicoka one international market ya gu surprise ciondo iriku hau no ngihota guona anake aitu makendia micongo angi ndina okuria ningi ona kurugitwo mai mahiu ugakora atiriri ati gutire kindu tariu mendagia muthanga mai mahiu niguo waka manyumba Nairobi no ukona ati technology iria yukite njeru tha ici ri ni building ni irakona building blocks ati no muthondeke toguo muthuri wajitie manufacturing ya kindu eco process indo ciake ati no gukorwo na engineering kiria na Ivasha ku kwejagwo muthanga magathondeka blocks na muthanga ucio na thimiti ati indo icio cikauma ciendeku ati mundu ucio ni manjia guthondeka ni manjia guthondeka bia no riu uria turekwo kuria gwitu na ta uria wiku uria mekite mukagwa kuhiriria thukuri kahakwo marangi magoka makamwira ati na ni bia cia CDF o uria muthuri yauga iria agirwo gukora kirutira wira ucio na basari ati ru mubunge ni taru ndirerire andu akwa na Ivasha matikanajitie basari tondu basari ndiari horo wa basari ndireciria kiria gikuingira muhuko ati mutumia ucio atuma ciondo ena bia muhuko koguo ndaguka gukuhoya ki basari ndecuga ndiramera atiriri gwaka thukuru na kuhaka rangi ni wega no akihaka no atiriri handu hana kesho bakorwo nio marahaka rangi a group ko ni ta boda bodari ukagwa mwina kambuni yanyu ito no mugithondeke CBO na register na tende process ini cia thirikari ati anake acio ni meka atia ni moya marangi mahakako no ukona atongoria acio maragira andu Nairobi kambuni cia kuma kuraihu igoka igaka irathi icio igoka ikaja mitaro iyo mugacoka inyuĩ mugoka mukahura hi na ni ndiraiguira na keitutha muno na ni njui ni murona uguo to ni tukoretwo na keypad warriors twitaga andu .com me haraka muno na social media
no kwandika
mwanake ucio ari hagwo magana mau akerwo atiri ni mubunge uyu utarwa muteithia miaka iyo ndirenda ru mwanure akoya anake ta 20 kana 30 kana 40 akamate kana 40 akamera ruwiro ya ndirenda ni mwanjie kuhura opponents yake no ndanoka na agenda na kiria aratuma ku ni bica cia thukuru na hatire biru athondekete bunge ya kuria tiriri mugundo uyu wa shari wa andu 3,000 mainuka ri tungikatia thirikari ino tugerie kurehe incentives cia ku attract investors gwake andu 3,000 ni mainuka no athi kugati we ne hakarangi hatire biru okanayo kwina thina ungi na kuu kwina issues cia thitima na Ivasha yo nyenewe niyo contributaga ki thitima no ekahana tari surrogate mother ati wera tuma thitima nja no ira produce thitima no ndira benefit na ki na thitima ati andu na Ivasha umuthi no tuone andu marona ngeta korobosha atumena kanyitira iga koroboi ati niko mundu aratumira ena Ivasha na niyo ira produce more than 70% ya thitima ria iko eguku goria kwagite ona o mubunge o wa kuu ukiugia atiriri no tukona alternative energy ati ni uguka na biru ya kuga atiriri indo ici cia ku import ta battery na nyamu cia solar ri ciekirwo onoko ni zero rating kana ikiridiuzwo niguo anake activate ri make na kuria kundu kwarite thitima itarakioneka ri no mekire solar tondu na agikira mucio ucio thitima ri na ure arendwa ri hage thitima 2,000 kana 3 agitumika akuruta bia icio ku no ngimwikirira solar rita rimwe ri cost ya solar rita rimwe ri mutumia ucio ndakariha thitima no gucenjia ri cenjagia ki indo icio koguo ngajie kuria atongoria ria meku kiria mareka ni guka kuga ati Uhuru ekite taru nyonaga atongoria itwa Central ati maingirire bunge makiuga na twari kuo tono ndarugamite 2017 nomination ni cia thiure cia thire ri aria mathire independent ndio mwere tukire tukirwo ni tura ithu tutire jeshi yao ya Uhuru ati acio niyo jeshi no tia ndiari jeshi ya guthie kumuteithia yari ya guthie kumwanura angikorwo he
mundu gutwara ku
angiko he mundu wona thina ne hinya nigucokeria mutongoria wa bururi ngatho tondu mundu ucio hinya ta ndingiciria ona no tondu ahurwo na miena yo na andu aria mamuhura ni aria nyumba na nduru no ndumuritu muno ati ungikorwo ati ciana ciaku na mutumia ni marakohura ona wathie kuria nja ndungikatia koguo ngauga atiriri he bata tukorwo twina ugi ati atongoria yothe hatire ukite na bill cia guteithia Wanjiku kiria mokite nakio no kuga Uhuru ekite taru ni ndironire debate na ndeko njugi ugu haha ati gwathie deputy president debate mundu arathire na agenda ya Uhuru okiuria president Uhuru okidu president Uhuru ono wathikiririe no kona andu amwe no cio mahurite he muno ati ni acida debate ndrori atiriri uyu ngina akiaroka na issues cia kugeria guteithia Wanjiku uria tungiuma haha mbere ngoria mugikuyu kai twakinyire ha ni ndakigwira mugikuyu tha tondu tungikuwa tu reduce tu ati mundu arajie kuga factory ngania ni tugwika ati ndagika 30 cia debate ni Uhuru na ndarenda giti ona kurikia rarikia neane handu haguthie kuria uyu atiriri njikite turenda tureciria tukumuruta thina uyu na hena thina ndaigua muthuri uyu aria wega muno ati ni turerwo ni tukurutwo na guku thi taxes ici tondu ni turauga taxes ici ciguru na ndio maugaga ri na hatire kindu kiagaga guka maundu mau mothe mareka no muhaka tucoke muhuko na no ithio tugutaxwo already ni wonete government yathi uri rathire mutu rathi iguru irageria ku reduce ithe mutu ucio coke na thi no raigua ninge ona wa reduce no thina ugakora ta riu mundu wi kundu ta Holland ni ndi aratakwa investors yacio a mahua majira atuliraga bure tondu maguta kwa olita ni magana mau makuga inywe ginya muraheo subsidy thirikari ikamurihota kumurihira na no murauga makuga Kenyans tumikitwo twajie gutwika lazy tondu turenda kira kindu bure mundu ndarenda guthie kuruta wira tondu etereire thirikari imwe atia imuhe na twajie gukorwo na mentality yo ni ukuona nginya na anake riu ni maguikara thi atinde kipadi-ini arihwo tupia
arumane
arihwo niho turorete riu na niho turi koguo ni ngira ati reke turute wira na ngitara twaga generation ino nini twaga kumirora wega ukuona anake acio riu magikinya handu hangi crime ikajia guthi iguru na niho kuritie kiuria
woria ngujuria tondu withini wa sector ya security
I'm a security expert koguo nie issues cia criminality ciongererekaga hindi no tondu one ukona ta riu nginya na thirikari yo nyenewe wambe tele politicians maigira politics matuaga agencies ta iria ciagirire okona judiciary okona security agencies sigatuika subordinate to the political class atiri ira report to the political class no menye political class ino nayo ni infiltrated to ni mikora andu aria maigirite utongori-ini through corruption koguo hatiri hindi magetikira institution ici irute wira uria ciagirire na nikio rona nginya na ku fight corruption already haria turi Kenya and I will say itagwitigira we are captives of corrupt leaders na makahota ku intimidate systems nikio onaga DCI area ahoragwo ni politicians anoragwo ukaigua kugeria kuga tengania ikarehwo politics ni kugete uguo ati ndirarehwo tonde murengo fulani mundu akamenya ni commit crime tha ici agathie mwena uyu niguo orio auge tindike na kitondu Kenyans ni majitie gwitikia they are also beneficiaries a product a crime yo makajia ku protect you no matirateithika ringi ni magana matano marenda kune nawe ujugiririe koguo wina no mwaka tuicokie thutha wa hema na twiteka mucemanio tukienda institutions ici ri cigwe tukuruta wira atia chapter 6 ino Kenya riu ndingiruta wira so far ni ronire kwina andu nginya marakirio na mena questionable integrity issues ati ni kwirwo ati waredwo ukorwo wi governor no redwo this qualification na ni uramenya nduri no ni ura insist ni urenda uthie through the process
ohanini wakairia tuthiite kirori wanjiku ena bata no wanjiku akiriwe uthiaga guthura andu aria mamuhana aiko wanjiku ni muiciri arenda muici taru tutierirwo haha atireke itigana inake ucio ni muici witu
hau no
andu magiukira muthenya barigici kererere uguo ri thaa thita makiuga ucio mweta muici ni witu ni muici witu reke iyoke
na ni hodero garuri I think no muhaka the society needs a serious overhaul na diamanya ula tugwika because either through the religion kana maundu ta mau na politicians magithurwo mathuru aria mena wigiririku taru ni ndirauga gatiriri he politicians mathia guthondeka bia ungikorwo we as a person hatiri undu wari wajia waku ugakura no ka make no ga create employment atikiria we wanona oko wanatigirwo kindu ni kunina then andu ni magirwo gukujaji mona ungikorwo ndungikuria ri urathi kura mataindo cia muingi atia die kana wanyita
nikio kigeranio
that should be the kigerio ati mundu no to taru uguo muthuri to uyu ati no acenjie iratathi rituike benjo koguo ni aroneka ona angithie bunge no a registrate maundu tondu angigakinya iratathi ri rituika benjo mathina mari agereire ni maritu ungikona ukone tanie nyumite kwa military gacoka ngoka ni ngwanjie security company ngandiko andu megukinywa ngiri hari ona maundu mari agereire ingigakinyia andu acio hau issues cia riba kurega kuriho na employers arĩa mahete wĩra kugeria industrial challenges niguo nginya hote gukorwo andu acio ni marainuka ri he ũrĩa njũĩ koguo he ũrĩa ingĩthiĩ bunge registrate niguo andu aitũ mateithĩke koguo ni twanjie kwĩyũria ni atĩ tũngĩteithia Wanjikũ niguo Wanjikũ atige gũikara harĩa arĩ na atige gũtuĩka ni agũtuĩka over dependent na mũmbunge
Kirori.
Yes sir.
Athuria ndathikĩrĩria gacĩra karĩa mokĩire rĩ na mũno ndathikĩrĩria rebo haha rĩ atĩ Gĩkũyũ kĩragwo mũthure nĩ ndĩrĩ mũheaga basarĩ na nĩ ngũmuongerera basarĩ no matiũragia atĩrĩrĩ mbeca iria iraheo mũndũ ũrĩa wĩna kũrĩa Wajir ta rĩu nĩ ndathomaga nyamũ iria cirangazetirwo constituencies iria ciĩkuo he constituency ĩmwe North Eastern ĩna andũ 18,000 18,000 andũ acio 18,000 rĩ mathabu manarua thirikari iheanaga milioni 135
137 ni
137.1 yeah ona ntumĩhe tu flat ya 137 niguo ũngĩ divide na andũ 18,000 ni kumaanisha o ũmwe wao arihagwo milioni 700 make ma 61 761 tajira tiriri tugerwo ithuĩ Gĩkũyũ thurai nĩ ngũmũrehera basarĩ mwathura thurai nĩ ngũmũrehera mwathura nĩ ngamũhe basarĩ mwathura go make sure irathi ici ciothe cianyu ni ciathondekwo no atire mundu ramena atiriri mwathura nie ndikamwe basarĩ ndaigua uga kaundu kega muno nie basarĩ ti wira wakwa mwathura wira wakwa ni gutigirira atiriri ni ndekira mbeca muhuko ucio waku
very good
niguo nduka need basarĩ we rathi kwari ruraini mugwika ati atongoria tondu atongoria ihanite ati o mwokire inyuothe muraina rwimbo rumwe thurai riu ni basarĩ riu ni ndina CDF riu ndina kina no atire mundu roka kunjira atiriri thurai guonie kabiacara haria tukugerera
no agenia muno tondu uguo woria riu ndanja kurigo atiriri ke ukorago ke ukaga micebano yakwa ku Juja ugathikira uria ndiraria tondu ni uria ndirera andu ni atiriri kindu kia mbere ngera andu mumenye hena kahinda ga siasa na kwina hindi ya kuruta wira hindi ya kuruta wira ni batire gukoro iria ndaihu arafu ni ugire kindu kiega muno ni wega mundu oge agenda yake no nie njugaga atiriri ona mwenda kumenya manifesto ya mundu ni wega kwanja mwambirie kurora niki ekite tondu menya atiriri ingiuga thie Wajir kana Garissa na ndire ndarugama kuu na ndire na idea ya kuu no guceria andu ta inyue muhe mujire mathina maku uria mahwana munyandikire ka agenda kega nie thie ndiga cram gicicio-ini ndarikia gukumenya wega ndathi haria hena andu nyanje gucokera andu mariciria ndi mundu mugi koguo kindu kia bata agenda ndi njega manifesto ni njega no kwanja reke turore mundu uyu niki ekite uguo agweta niki ekite mbere ya kurugama arafu uguo woga tari utareke turore ta Garissa Garissa county ina andu 480,000 Ruiru iyo ni county na ina constituency ithathatu
county ngima
constituency ithathatu kuga constituency imwe ni andu 80,000 gwiciria adenduale adora mamuthuraga ni kindu ta 25 kuria nyumite Juja ithuĩ we are over 300,000 na warora Ruiru 374,000 ni constituency imwe wito weteithie ward tumimakiria mandu 25 iyo ni ward imwe ward imwe
Juja ward kungi iyo ni constituency
Juja ward ina andu makiria 36 Theta 31 Juja ward Juja constituency ngima to voters only 134,000 yeah no riwe reke twarie ma ni ithwe andu a nyumba ni ithwe twahitirie ithwe tuthuraga andu aria mena mbeca tutiroraga ugi no arora andu aya a Garissa na kuungi ana ginya Nyanza kindu kia mbere maroraga ugi wa mundu no ithu turoraga ki besha kiveti mundu gucina ki kini mundu cio huthira milioni 30 kana 50 kana igana aikia kuingira bunge reke twarie ma agenda ke gakorwo ke ya mbere gucokia mahea na cokie na faida alafu atare mathabu ma ndarugama next time nigabatara gucina kini ringi koguo mbeca ngahuthira hindi iyo na alafu tondu ndahota kwaga kuhituka ndagwa ndagienda maica make mathie below a certain level koguo no nginya acerie mbeca ati ona agwa lifestyle yake niki ni ako maintain macio nimo meciria maingi mandu aria tuthuraga ithui andu a nyumba ya mumbi no ari angi a Nyanza na ku Garissa tari acio a Garissa mathiaga na clans reke tuge ni clan inya clan yanyu ya kinya mugacaria the best and the brightest mundu uria mugi fio mukogo no turenda rugame oya akinya oguo clan itu yakinya tugacaria ki mundu uria mugi na tutacire mundu mugi tondu ni hinde itu inyu mugato support oyo twacagura mundu mugi reke tugetagwo kirori aingira bunge ndagakorwo no horo wa gucokia mahia akakorwo akimenya atiriri no nginya njike kindu kia bata no etha ndacoka mucie clan itu ndigakorwo na aibu riu take turore atiriri riria magayaga constituencies in 2012 before magaya constituencies in 2012 na constitution no igiokai andu aria ogi kumana kuria kungi mogire atiriri reke iturore kundu kuria gutari developed tuhe mbeca nyingi kuu no etha guikanire na ki ukinyire na guku develop andu aitu matiari bunge
te barathie nyitwo digiri
imekinyire no etha cikoro ciike ci hamwe riu mogoguo andu aitu aria twacagurire acio marai gatagati gaki biashara mahea reke jokie koguo watho kihitukio bunge andu tumatiari ho baadaye moka kumenya uria kuri nigo ndu turanja kuigwa horo wate one man one vote one shilling reke twarie ma ni ithue twahitirie gucaria mundu wina mbeca handu akorora ki ogi kindu kira fatire kugatha ici mbeca cioka reke turie raia marie no twathi guthurana tuthure mundu mugi in fact nijugaga atiriri ugo tugaga at parliament itago the August House difatire gwito August House matire gwito House of Ideas todo mubunge arathi ku legislate guthondeka watho aikoro meciria makwa ni ndirahuthire milioni 50 ndenda gucicokia andu mathie gucira horo wa ideas nike ga contribute hau
ona nduri kuo
kwena hindi mwe twari moka ogi oguko tu Nairobi andu aingi riu hena mundu kuma a journalist kuma mweno show wa Western niyo kira gituria atiriri inywe andu a nyumba ya mobie mweno wa biashara mukoragwo muri ogi muno na nimwe kuruta biashara fio no ithuĩ ta journalist turigagwo atiriri tondu mara andu atatu ithuĩ ta journalist hena kiuria tukuragia reke tumurie niki gitumaga hindi ya githurano mukoragwo mukehengeca uguo muno aithia tika aca ithe tutihengecaga ke maketwira reke tumuhe facts no rikana hindi ria unfortunately ndege ya Saitoti na yagwire na etagwatia Orojode ku aubete Orojode diwa macogire kada etago Agostino Neto aigira bunge aikari hari mieri 3 riu nwetha githurano gikinye riu acio matwirire atiriri marikia korora Hansard record Agostino Neto eika maita maria aririe bunge ni maita maingi gukira over 50% of Central Province Mount Kenya MPs maikarite bunge miaka 5 uyu umwe aikara mieri 3 ni contribute maundu maingi muno magutithia andu ao gukira nuthu ya Mount Province MPs maikarite miaka 5 ni kuga atia hau turathura mundu rathi gukira bunge ati kinya hindi ya motion makarora turavote mwana reko tupige kura upande gani akoga yes or no maumanja uhorosho ndurathie wega magoka TV ni kwaja uhorosho tutirenda ke no bunge ni gukira marakira koguo tubatirire kurora andu aria ogi arafu ni kunjuritie niki kiratumire nyigire kiria uteti-ini
utigane na maundu maya megoreka
ni tondu atiriri
innovation urahota guteithia nginya andu na irio ciao muthenya ucoke uthie utinde uking'eng'ana na andu hau nginya kahi kanini karagwira uka na gauka ndio gatukora
na gatire nakura
gatire ginya kura ko Kenya
okaria kana kono report form. Mwaka wa 1997 kuna hede dedicate proposal gitwara UNEP. Hena madam munene ku etago Anne Marie Cunningham. Ni akenire muno ni proposal yo yakwa. Dogete atiriri ha twitaga boma kana Dandora dam site. Ni akorwo na takataka yothe ni rogi gotire guthie ke Dandora. Riwe takataka yo jagu vutha ni rutaga methane gas. Riu dogete atiriri agikorwo no tuhote go trap methane gas. No to generate your electricity. Ditima. Gimetwara local government, gitwara kwa Ministry of Environment, ginyagethie Nairobi City Council. Na daria na technocrats, othe maroga nikido kiaga. No giakinyira haha level ya PS na ministers. Ai, kirori. Modo me oraturehere maya ni mathungu. Riwe twanyitana Anne Marie Cunningham. Na ni muthungu. Gutire murango twathiaga hamwe. Tukahora murango uyu ginya tugikinyira meya. At least meya na andu ake nimonire hahena utheri. No ndagika ya mwisho uhoro ucio ugithira 2012 tugithie kinya 2012 minister wa energy hinde yo riu ni governor handu ni augire wega muno ni ndamonire TV akiuga tuna idea njeru muno turashiri atiriri methane gas ikoragwo kuria Dandora tugime trap tuone thitima andu no mateithike muno 15 years down the line. No githira no gioka akehera kuma gite kiu kia minister agithia gituika governor kana senator uria wokire idea okay ikiorera uguo na njira guhi ni kirenda kuga Kenya no itu ena resources nyingi muno tubatire kurotoria togu ukira andu me Europe ithue fatire kurotoria togu yani tugakorwo twina besha no uru wito andu ara tushaguraga reke guhe a good example reke torore Singapore na Kenya in the 60s twari hamwe in fact we were richer than Singapore no niki Singapore mekire marikia kuona no menye Singapore dire na natural resources maishiririe makiona mena resource imwe akiri siao magicokenia adudu makiuga atiriri o constituency adu mashari adoria oge fio mamigire mamatware bunge same thing Japan mekire ona jamba de na resources marore makiuga adoria oge megire ke bunge marikia kuigira bunge meriro atiriri tiri yo witu ni duvia ni ta duvia gutire kindu tungiona koguo ni inywe tuga muthie bunge mwishirie mumenyore ithue tukota gwikara maisha mega na riwe go example ya Japan ramekire tariwe andu acio marikia kuigira bunge ni marorire makiona kweri tutire nake na resources riu niki tugwika macokine dudu makiuga atiriri kuria gwitago Africa andu acio mena resources nyingi muno tariu ta kuria Kenya hena andu etagwo Funyula hena andu etagwo Laikipia Embu Taita Hills mena kindu gitagwo iron ore tiri na kuma iron ore no one shuma riu magituma some of them amwe ao moke guko Kenya agme magithie ku Funyula Laikipia Embu ku Taita riu reke juge oyu ni Japanese agoka agakora andu aria meke gicaki kiu riu magakora we ni wewe ku makwira atiriri Mr Jenga hena tiri turenda kuma haria na haria thiogore kuma muthuri uria umwire tani imwe okumuriha 3,000 no we warehe ni ngukuriha 5,000 no anyita we riu wathie wake okumwira atiriri ndina tifa 20 tons reda tiri uyu rori imwe ngukuhe 60 reda rori 10 ku imwe cio ni besha ciwana atia 600 icio ni besha njega muno we riu waheo 60 na nora ina 2,000 per ton wena besha cigana onawe wina 120,000 o muthenya omwe na riwe ni urigura kuma gwake ogi nogi koguo ni gukorwo wewe we sawa koguo na njira nguhi ni tamaragura tani imwe 5,000 cia iron ore igathie ku Japan ogi extract iron ore ni gukora percentage of about 65% ni gukuhe steel koguo agikora tani imwe ni 5,000 tani igire besha cigana 10,000 koguo ni moya 10,000 magura iron ore makinya kuria maka extract shuma kuma muthago uyu umenya process ya ku extract shuma hena ndo mararuta wira kuma 2 tons ni makuona between 1.2 to 1.4 tons yani kilo 1200 ginya grime magana mana cia shuma na magurire 10,000 niguo shuma yo maka mithodeka kindo kireto Toyota RAV4 igashoka guku tukamigura na 5.5 million tajira tiriri no mugi
rugamira utondu macio mathabu ona no matume nginya turugamie show ni tabarira ya Kimuri itagwo Kimuri University thuria twina haha ni ndona andu ingi muno maratwira meciria macio ni muturenda thini wa bururi ucio wa gwetwo Kenya tuikirie soka kaida atari kunene.
Introducing a new way to earn cash every time you buy airtime. Simply dial *487*2#. Buy airtime, pay for electricity or water bills for you or someone else, and get paid papo hapo. Usinunue airtime na tokens bure bure tu. Earn instantly with *487*2#. Dial *487*2# now.
Kabuni ya Ruiru Mabati Factory nemo yathondeki njũru a mabati ma kũgita nyũmba. Tuthondekaga mabati mĩthemba mĩingĩ na ma gĩkĩro kĩa igũrũ marĩa matũraga ihinda iraihu na magathakaria mũgitĩre wa nyũmba yaku makĩria. Mabati maya metagwo box profile, Europe tile, Jenga tile, corrugated S profile na mangĩ maingĩ na mokaga na marangi maingĩ ngũrani. Mabati maitũ nĩ metiragia mbura nene na riũa rĩhiũ na koguo makagĩrĩra nyũmba cia biacara na cia gũikarwo. Nĩguo gwetia oda yaku tucerere showroom-inĩ itũ mwena wa Ruiru town na no tucerere rũrenda-inĩ rwitũ nĩruo www.ruirumabati.co.ke kana ũkenerere ũtungata wa kũreherwo mabati maku harĩ ũrĩ gwa kahinda ka mathaa 72 tu. Ruiru Mabati Factory, mali safi kwa bei poa.
Nyumbani ndio kila kitu.
Neno lenye uzito zaidi kuliko lolote.
Nyumbani ni urithi tunaoachia wajukuu wetu.
Nyumbani ni upendo
na usambazaji wa upendo.
Nyumbani ni furaha, umoja na kufurahikiana.
Nyumbani ni usalama. Nyumbani ni kazini.
Na kazini ni nyumbani. Nyumbani kiu inamalizwa.
Na kusaidiana kwa lolote lile. Inadhamini mafanikio yetu.
Nyumbani ni nguvu yetu, ni furaha yetu, ni maisha yetu. Tukileta maendeleo nyumbani,
tuna uhakika tutabadilisha Kenya.
Tunabadilisha Kenya mzima.
Inawezekana.
Azimio nyumbani, azimio nchini.
We shall legalize weed.
Professor George Wajakoya wa Kiamakia Roots.
Semeni Babakea. Babakea.
Raila Amolo Odinga wa Azimio la Umoja One Kenya.
Unajua mimi sina pesa ya serikali ama ya kashfa.
David Mwaure wa Ihiga wa Agano.
Tunasema kazi ni nini?
Na William Samoei Ruto wa UDA. Directine akita itanogia president. Tugathiore mutapo.
Mudo ngeshiguharirie thamaki tucoka tuthoreke greens tuthoreke smoothie na mucere wa turmeric.
Hatari ndo ngeru kuria. Karibu sana.
Asante.
Irio icio nĩ nduge cikarugĩka.
I've always been a Rihanna super fan kwanza kitambo tukiuliza watu mabeshe zangu high school. I don't think I'm Kenya's Rihanna, but kuna some resemblance at some point. Hairstyles fulani nikieka nini na ka Rihanna. So I just embraced it. I mean, kuna time fulani whether nimekuwa tao CBD and there's this girl kwa anashinda akishout Rihanna.
To watch this story and more, download the Citizen Digital app today.
Kenya's #1 app, Citizen Digital.
Nĩ ngatho nyingĩ mũno no tuthiĩte o wega nĩ tabarĩra ya kĩmũnene ceceni ya Inooro TV na nĩ tũkwamba gũthiĩ ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe nginya kũrĩa mwena wa magoti-inĩ kũrĩa ekwĩrwo anjũragano ya wakiri Willie Kimani, ndereba wa taxi Joseph Mũirũrĩ na ũrĩa wakiri Kimani arũgamire Josephat Mwenda ũmũthĩ nĩguo magũkorwo magĩtwarwo igoti-inĩ. Ekwĩrwo aya nĩ hamwe na maabitha ana a borithi na nĩ makoretwo magĩtwarĩtwo kamũtaratara tau kau ka igoti-inĩ na ũmũthĩ nĩguo gũkorwo magĩtuĩrwo itua rĩao nĩ igoti inene rĩa Milimani. Reke tũingĩre kũu ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe twambe tũthikĩrĩrie o hanini nĩ atĩa kũrathiĩ na mbere kuma mwena ũcio wa igoti-inĩ. Nĩ kũrĩa igoti-inĩ nĩ kũrĩa ekwĩrwo andũ arĩa moragirwo ũmwe wao arĩ wakiri Willie Kimani nĩ magũgĩkorwo magĩtuĩrwo mũthenya wa ũmũthĩ. Nĩ ũhoro thiĩte kana nĩ mũtaratara ũkoretwo ũgĩthiĩ kwa kahinda ga mĩaka 5 na ũmũthĩ nĩguo gũgĩkĩmenyekana itua rĩao rĩgũkorwo rĩhana atĩa. No tũgĩthiĩ na mbere thĩinĩ wa tabarĩra ya Kimũrĩ tũgathiĩ na mbere na kũmũcokeria ngatho inyuothe mũratwandĩkĩra. Namba itũ ya SMS nĩ 22488 no aranĩrie na niĩ kũrĩa thĩinĩ wa mitandao @Mike Njenga ũkorwo ũkĩũria ciũria ciaku. He handũ ũgũkinyĩtie harĩa hacuma.
Koguo nĩ wona ĩroma gũkũ na 5,000 per acre, sorry per ton, na tani igĩrĩ nĩ 10,000 ĩgacoka ĩta RAV4 ya 5.5 million. Nĩ gũkũragia atĩrĩrĩ hau no mũgĩ nĩ
ũrĩa ũkire amba together tĩri witũ
opposite ya mũgĩ nĩkĩ
ketutie ũkĩmwĩta mũkĩngu mũno
ũcio no
ketuge nĩ ũtarĩ mũgĩ
ũcio tarĩ mũgĩ
rĩu nĩ ithuĩ
rĩu nĩ ndĩrahoya andũ a Juja metĩkĩre gũthura nduĩke mũmbunge. Rĩrĩa tuĩka mũmbunge, one of the things geka nĩ gũthondeka watho atĩ gũtirĩ hĩndĩ raw material ta iron ore ĩkauma gũkũ in raw form. Arafu tũrore wega tuĩke triangulation atĩ kuma Funyula nginya Taita Hills, tarĩu Kishashe mines in Taita Hills o mweri ma-exportaga 7,500 tons cia iron ore. Rĩu tuĩke triangulation between Funyula Hills, kuma Funyula, Taita Hills, Laikipia, Ebu, watara ũguo wachora wageria kũnyitanithia gatagatĩ nĩ Kiambu. Koguo tondũ ithĩ umĩte Juja reke iron yũkage kũ yũke Juja. Alafu yoka Juja tũkambĩrĩria gũthondeka maũndũ marĩa mahũthũ. Ndĩna mũnyaka mũno hena indo thondekaga cia bara rĩrĩa ciathimirwo nĩ ciĩtũkire wega mũno. Rĩu hena organization kuma UK ĩtagwo Royal Academy of Engineering nĩ manyandĩkĩire marũa makĩnjĩra nyamũ cio thondekete nĩ njega mũno, ithuĩ tũkoragwo a fraternity of the best innovative engineers in the world, tũrenda ũtuĩke ũmwe witũ. Koguo ũguo tũraria thaa ici ndi ũmwe wao, tiga ngothi ĩno yakwa bado no ya kawaida no ndi ũmwe wao. Ũngĩtuona
tuikarĩte na ti ya kawaida nĩ
ĩrĩa njega biũ, ĩno nĩyo ĩrĩa premium best. Ngĩna tuikarĩte thĩ nao tũkoragwo tũkora gĩthũngũ kĩrĩa kĩa rĩu ũrĩa niĩ ndĩrabanga gwĩka tondũ rĩu ndĩ ũmwe wa Royal Academy of Engineers nĩ ngamera rĩu ndĩ mũmbunge moke gũkũ matuonie kũruta cuma kuma tĩri ũcio twenje nĩ indo hũthũ gũthondeka iciko, hũma, banga, mĩthikiri nginya sports bikes. No rĩtwa rĩakwa arĩa nini gĩkũyũ-inĩ makuga kĩrori nĩ rũrĩ rĩa nene gũkua mahiga, no andũ arĩa mwĩ gĩkũyũ wega mauga kĩrori nĩ mũndũ onaga kĩ haraihu mũno. Mwaka wa 2030 rĩrĩa gakinya ũkorwo na mbeca cihana atĩa na ũkorwo wĩ United Kingdom, gũtirĩ hĩndĩ ũkagũra ngari ya petrol kana ya diesel, makorwo makĩhũthĩra electric cars only. Koguo my idea nĩ atĩrĩrĩ, acio Royal Academy of Engineers tondu ndi umwe wao ndimere moke guko twina raw materials magie gutubundithia guthondeka electric cars no climate change gwe hwana ti kwega thaici kwaja ku Europe temperature tu shirakinya 40 to 50 degrees koguo athungu ni marakuo horo wa climate change na njira nene muno kriu ni tukamera atiriri ukai guku Juja tondu ni twina cuma nyingi muno matubundithia guthondeka electric cars kugethi uguo Juja ni gakoro constituency ya mbere Africa ngima kwaja guthondeka ngari cia electric
rugamira hau athuria wa thikiria meciria mao ni manene muno no mahitia ni ati makinya bunge wathie bunge wathikiriria andu aria meku wamarora wacoka mabuku-ini uthie kuhura uguo rukungu ukore mawatho maria mandikirwo ati tuturibaga mawatho mana ku tene muno oenye matire mawatho marutaga
bwana Njenga reke ngumaki ni undu umwe hihi athuri a ngumori makihea ona makiuga ha moige ati tutikwenda gukorwo tuhana turukite ni undu wa gucenjia tondu wa mbere ni okorwo kuri andu njui ona to turaiga centro tukihuraga centro ni turi thina umwe twagire centro ithuĩ hore njugire ha tutiendagia agenda niĩ ndĩna mbirũ na ndiĩ bunge ĩtagwo NHF fuel fund twathire South Africa tũgĩkora gũtirĩ thibitarĩ mũndũ aingĩraga akarĩhwo na teni twĩka mwana Mike tũkĩanjia ũhoro ũcio na ngona kuna mũthuri mũndũ atigithũkagĩrio ndora ndaigua kiuga ũhoro wa side ya Dandora twina mwaka ũmwe na kĩo tũthirũkĩte mire tũkĩte nginya ona haha inorere na tũkawaria na nginya ona ndagĩka ĩno nĩ tũraũtwarĩra Matharu na Raila tondũ nĩ twaũtwarĩire nginya Mudavadi na kĩrĩa tũrekire rĩ thutha wa ũrĩa tũrathiũrũrũkire tũrambire ndĩranyita secretary general wakwa ararũgama gĩtĩ ta kĩu ũrarũgama kĩa MP wĩtagwo Jurisdictional wapo tũranyita mũndũ ũngĩ na
Kanoru
ũrĩa ũmwe mwarĩ nake gũkũ wĩra Bogo Kanoru rĩu nĩ warũgama gĩtĩ kĩa MP kũrĩa Baka Central tũroima hau tũramenya ona county representative nĩ kwendagwo tũranyita andũ amwe me matatũ-inĩ ta mũrefu ararũgama Kayole North nake nĩ MCA nangĩ nĩkĩ kĩratũmire twĩke ũguo tondu abunge aya tukoragwo tukĩrĩa nao ngwĩrire haha tukanyua nao twatũranagia na aingĩra bunge kĩndũ kĩa mbere akagũra ngari njerũ na ĩgekĩrwo tint ya kerĩ thimũ ĩrĩa aratũmĩraga ĩkanengerwo PA wamũhũrĩra thimũ ukakora ina PA agakwĩra ako bunge atakupigia nipe message maundu mothe riu onake ari kuribaga kundu kuriku riu ndenda gukuhe na kasinario thikiri haha Njenga biru no ndenda gukwira nie ni tuikarite thĩ na kioni
Jeremia
na nĩ njaga muno tondu tuigaga atiriri mundu kinyitie miaka 70 ri na njokerie kioni ngatho muno tondu ni ametindikite muno tugathinya tugaikara thĩ kamĩtĩ-inĩ yao ungimwira ari he NHF arute mbeca ku angikorwo thirikari ni wera mũriha ciringi 2,000 one cia kuria ri mbeca ici ingi wamwira arute cia NHF 6,000 ri na thirikari iramuhe 2,000 ri wona na mutumia ucio kana muthuri ucio angiruta ku wakere wa thibitari ri uri wona odi ya mundu mukuru ukora mutumia wa miaka 80 na hinya ikunura hinya kanite maigĩtwo odi mwana kana ka miaka 17 no nĩ arenda gũtikĩrwo special care macio nĩ maũndũ marĩa marahitajia bunge arĩa marona na maitho macio ti maũndũ atĩ mathiomi ũkoima hau ũgakora thibitarĩ ta ndagĩka ĩno twĩ nawe ina mathĩna matahana mathĩna ũroithi ũgakora nyamũ yao ya laboratory nĩ yathũkire macini yetereirwo atĩ anga CC wa county tondũ nĩ devolve ahĩtũkia ngandũ ĩtwarwo kwa CC wa nake wa finance na ate atware gwe kamati yo nawe tware parliament andu atano magakua niki tutangioka na bill tera twinayo tureka ikoro ina PPH public partnership thibitari gaka haha kando-inĩ ri na mwathiri muthi mukiana haha kando-inĩ ya thibitari nginya dispensary iria muri korana na kuu gicagi-inĩ ikaheo handu kanya NHF nayo karuta ciringi 1 thini wa maguta betro-inĩ ũgĩkĩra ngari maguta nĩguo ona maguta ĩrĩa makũiga nĩ mathira twĩkĩre gwĩ thitima unit-inĩ ciringi 1 ri Iyo ĩgatwara kwa NHIF. Tie wĩtie mũndũ ngiri 3. Mwĩtie ngiri 3. Mwaka. Mũndũ ũcio wona ingĩra thibitarĩ rĩ, outpatient yandĩkĩrwo ndawa rĩ, nena kandi rĩ, akoima gathi harĩa nja. Akakarithiti kamwe agatigwo hau. Nikio turenda mathakarwa niguo he andu. Tondu ukoro uria uri kuo ndungirekererio ndamathia iria cirari kuo. NHF iregete guthi na mbere ndamathia. Raira na mathakarwa ni matware andu njera. Matwara andu njera NHF andu matigakua. Wona wanyita kakadi karithiti kau waheo hare wandikirwo ndawa. Woima nja hare ugakora chemist ira i hare nja ndigitwo nja ya gate. Thiini wa thibitari riu tondu mundu ari kumukopt aingire thiini wa thibitari laboratory yo handu hakwiraga tondu ngithi thibitari nyingi maiki guku Nairobi ungigwathikana na guku nja ukoraga nginya ona kihabu ndoikite research wakora thibitari haha ni account no urerwo atiriri thi uthimirwo haria gate ni hau nja hau athie ni horabuiri mundu ucio atwarwo haria rabu-ine yo ri agikinya haria wakamwira atiriri ni ngiri 3 ndoima ngo ona cia tigiti ni kuhoyaga akomukora arathiururuka hau ndaka ya mwico koiga ati guturagwo ni mugongo na tondu ndaratura wega muno ahurira andu ake othe ri akono magana maigana 5 akoiga atiriri ni ndawa iri kuingenyua nyambe ndia gutura turwo ni mugongo uguo ndaratura tu ndanoka na report ya kindu ndari kindu athimwo acoka na karatathi gatari kindu gathimitwo na acoka andikirwo ndawa ya painkiller ona werwo akagure nja ya gate kunina mathina macio ri no gwika PPH wona mundu ima haria ri tondu ndanoka ni gwika no kire ni thina ri na bururi no wakirwo ni andu mena ugima wa mwiri rungi akorwo mundu murwaru ri akandikirwo karatathi kakopi kamwe gatigwo haha kare kage gatigwo keme haria chemist kare kage akainuka nako ndari ona tenio na hera aingira thibitari yo gate ni akoima arihite mundu ucio wona maho na mirimu ire mingi iroraga andu Kenya tondu mundu hindi ria agiru ni guthondekwo ni kwaremire guthondeka hindi iyo na ndarimwo ni kwenda aremirwo tondu kwari na thina wa bia gwa kahinda kau no andu a gucenjia watho ucio ni abunge na wabunge mendaga atia abunge mendaga kugena na macakaya athie macakaya-ini harambe cia mirimo na cia gukuruta kundu kuria kwina kurerirwo kiria moke matisane ige kuraruta gwoki uga ni nguruta ngiri 20 mundu ucio arendwo milioni igiri mwamuhe ngiri 500 athie kamwira arikarikite ri ni ciathirira barabara tungithondeka policy tukorwo teinya twingira turathi guthondeka policy ite kuhitaji gutindi ukiruta mbeca irahitaji policy irugamirire mundu ucio wi Rundua irugamirire mundu wi Mombatha irugamire mundu ura wi Nyeri irugamire mundu ura wi Gacagi-ini kara kena dispensary tondu ndugathi dispensary ona imwe ukore chemist ndiri dawa ndugathi dispensary ona imwe ukore laboratory mundu ni gwiciragirio gwakoragwo akerio ati ni kugugutura maitu akoiga ni kuguru akerwo maitu ni arthritis ndanathimwo ndanahurwo mbica ndanekwo ndu akerwo maitu ira cia wina mwana Nairobi mera makugurire ndawa ici maitu ratara na mathina manene muno ri akanjia kugia mathina ma higo anga ma pressure na maundu maya mothe marakiritwo ni gukorwo twina atongoria twaigirire kindu giothe kigeranio kia mbere miaka 5 tugika twika kigeranio kia bia tutiri hindi turi twakirathi tukeuria atiriri miaka eno 5 ri tuonete maundu mariku miaka eno 5 aya twathurire ri matwikire atia we na urenda guka ri jujari miaka 5 kari urekaga atia
very important
wanyita uteithitie u
niki
wikite thini wa community hau uri ukoretwo ri kuri mundu uri wehuiniria gwake ona omwe akainuke muhunu riu andu itu metagire gwakinya atikiria ngari ri guka mundu ikombora nginya ha Westland yogoka na kiguru kiigano gioka aumira hare iguru ajia ore njugire haha akajia kwajia hado na hako mundu hindi aratora mundu thibitari hado na ucio wa gutwa thibitari amwira ndina mundu aratwa thibitari akorio si tutatoa watu chini si mutapata pesa na kile kiagazo akaiga si mnaona Uhuru na hadi kivile alifanya si ni huyo mzee si tutampeleka nyumbani wenderia mundu police ile kuyo hao police ile kuyo wenderia mundu ungirora campaign yacikagwo ruraya gutire handu mundu atanjaga maria ma ari angi atanjaga kiria guka gwika tondu kindu kiria uroka we guka uroka gwika kindu kia miaka 5 Uhuru ahuruka ni ainuka Moi wa Kibaki ithe ndahurukire Uhuru nake ni kuhuruka arahuruka wo uroka gutwikira atia na gukorwo ndi murengo uyu ri gukorwo ndi murengo ucio niki ndare gukorwo ndi murengo uyu tondu kigeranyo kiria ndagwikithie ni atiriri ungikorwo rani munini wa munene na ni urahuraga munene ri yungikorwo ni we na mbe riu munene atari ho ungihura raia riu we nona koguo ri uyu utari wekithio kigeranio ri ndari akorwo thirikari nene nake tukamuria atiriri we na we wikite atia ni uhunaniire democracy taru muthi utwi haha njenga tene tutingiokire haha twariria turari democracy yatuhire freedom ya kwaria uri othe kwenda katiba eno twina uraiga ukarugama na kiama kia ODM na Ivasha agiari tene ndungirugama kiria gituhete guo othe independent gutiari giteta kiu tukiritiru indo icio ciothe ni kindu gitagwo constitution ino njeru tukirutu ere ari nguru yo kombo ya muthungu twingire-ine no njeru ni twacenjirie maratathi-ini tuku kungiri tutiacenjirie riu ni waura igwa ngikwira te Mike umuthi uyu taru ara tumekuingira bunge na nikio tutarenda tugiturasta na ithu tugitwaraga itu ni turenda kunyita biru ira twi nayo tondu ithu tugire tutigatigana nayo nginya gakinya bunge tondu guteithia Wanjiku na tugacokia ngatho muno ni inyue amemerekia tutindikane nayo tuminengere mathakarwa na Raila na he mundu arajurire atiriri niki kiratumire wone mathakarwa na Raila ndiramwira tondu ni njui mathakarwa kindu kimwe ndaragia maheni na andu aingi mendete maheni no ndaragia maheni ndiramuria atiriri tukwenda twike test huthu utwire mathakarwa haria hothe anagerera nginya kwa mai ni kaundu kariko kamarora na koronako ni haria ero kaundu kiria gigutuma tumutrust ri mena Raila ri tukumanengera tondu ni tuonete past na history twi nayo neo turathi nayo
he kaundu waria na kaundu ndenda tugerere hau no arugamite githurano kiu kingi
niguo
na ukorio ditariri urarugama ona ugigoka kuga ni ndenda gutwika mubunge ni kaundu kariku wikeire acio makurigiceirie hau magiuga uyu in fact onu kuona mai mako na onu kuona ciana iria ci tondu turoka turakora andu aingi marenda kurugama no ria mundu ucio ni atia uri waneka ungi guku community ino hatiri undu angikuorotero wa kwere karia nini
taru andu na Ivasha nitukoretwo no kahinda kanene na no njuge ndiagite o ciana karundo taru uri ndirathomithirie na ti wakwa kigerio giki kiraurikire aranyitire B-. Na mwana ucio ni aretirwo guthi gwika horticulture kuria Egerton mbere yo ndari na cio atatu kiu kingi na othe metitwo umwe eri Kirinyaga umwe wika statistics no rio ngigwika account no ngiagetwo Kirugoya university kwici ni kuri na kou he karatina na kaguthi gwika statistics hau hangi mbere ningi ndari ona angi koguo ni over the time ngoretwo ngiteithia ciana iria citahotete ucio no andu a mbere wa keri community ya Naivasha mundu ane ahitha kiria nakio kana mundu ina ng'ombe ndangithie gutwara ngurwe ugutwara ng'ombe igongona-ini riria rirendekana nima ni rakwa no security Naivasha ndigwiciria he mundu wanakorwo na mathiko agetia thigari akarihio na ndira kumenya ni wako mokaga hau makagira ugakorwo muthenya umwe ni gukirwo kwagirwo thigari ona 10 na kindu ino thiko tofauti
na utiwona ki ni amekuruta wira
dikire na andu aingi riu tutigukiruta oria kurendekana andu ndina aingi ndu igwire ngikwira ndina andu hakuhi ngiri na kindu a wira
urandika ukahe musara
o mweri koguo ri haha ri moda oko kwina thigari ta ithano irendekana ri tore ungitwara thigari 10 hindi ya festive urihie ri ni oko ni mathiko ona ni makorogwo moy makiandika kuria ko Naivasha mandikaga ni turaheo thigari cia bure tondu hindi yo andu makirira ri ni uranyitanira nao na ndie ndarihie miaka umakiria 10 tondu ndeciririe uguo niguo tunginyitanira na community na tunyitanire taru thukuru cia Naivasha ndiagite imwe gwitwo Mirera primary school jakite ucio 11 na ndire muobunge na bia ciakwa na nwamenya cioro 11 ni bia cigana ingigitwo Manera ngaka cioro 4 thukuru teyo ngamihe security ndarugama hindu ingi mari na thina wa security ngimahe security nginya umuthi udie ndarihia na ni kurokaga mundu ni kurokaga andu o hwaini koguo kuga uranyita community mundu anena akirie na kinuma tondu ndungigithie kuga ugutwara kirio tari koguo raini ni yo yakwa ri tondu no irahutia andu ri ngamiteithia in terms of response Naivasha ni wewe ni uhindira wokaga kwari ukora muingi muno na ni kwari ni yo ikaine ona ndigita kuri mu Sin City we ni maundu mayo hindira kwari ikaine kwari andu metagwa a vampire ni no njuge ni twanyitanire na borithi na ngihurwo muno ni andu a siasa kundu ndaneanite ngari cirute hindi gutiare nginya borithi na ngari turari horo wa 2829 ona itari kekire-ini ngihana ngari na ngari cio igicoka ikipoliticizwo no idea yari ya kumekiwa ni twahe borithi ni undu wa response tondu niguo igua mundu ngania ni oragwo mundu ngania ni akanjakwo aci andu ni moka ni maruga ngima gwaku no imagine arume maingirite nyumba gwaku magakinya nginya ni maikuruga ngima na ni maikarire mathaa 3 kana 4 maundu maria makomekitwo nyumba ni maritu
manene
koguo ni twohotire ku reduce na ni njugaga uguo ukora ugiikuruka completely nginya hindi ria thirikari ino yagiukira na ikiheana ngari koguo ni tukoretwo tukinyitanira na andu na hindi yo ri hatiri mundu urathie gwitia ki ona ndururu koguo nie ongekone andu a Naivasha ni tunyitanire nao muno maundu-ini mau ma security maundu-ini mau akigua ma hindi ria andu mena mathina mao tukamanyitana na ciana na ni God very proud taru mwana tocio acio mahutuka mathie na mbere ona ni mokaga na taru acio mundu arikia university arikia high school ithe ndakire na kibandi okaga kanjia kuruta wira ku na akarihagwo mushara etereire guthie university na thie university no tumahe akaritina na tukambonia nginya process ya ku apply ke indo ta help na maundu ta mau koguo kiria gia fatani ati Wanjiku ni agirirwo gukorwa kirora mundu na wira uria arutite nwanjuria miaka yo na ndakurutira mingi tondu wira ndakianjirie no igua ndanjirie ku deal na community kuma kindu 26 na ni handu tutwaranite kagati nawe na niho ndireririo na andu aya mekua taru ndirathie na andu angi ona twathie twaheo platform ukaigua uria ngwirire mundu arauga ndugamite maita 5 ndari namba 2 ndirenda munjiguire tha riu rita riri ni ritu no kona anake itu no ni matumiritwo uru muno wakora taru ukoni ta mubunge uria wikuona no ingi challenge ona ndimu challenge haha no njende kumenya aritie maita maigana bunge
urenda kuruta o
Jen Kihara ni maita maigana aritie bunge kana policies iria rehete bunge tondu hatiri hindi ungikorwo ati wi bunge na hatiri undu we munene wikite kiria wikite na ni wega thukuru itu rigwa ni twauga no ni tukwenda okoni cia hakora ngire ni ama benefit na contract icio tondu ndungitwiraga ati uri rutaga andu Nairobi kana atia ati arata kuwa Nairobi ni maroka makaheo mawira no ana hindi rio rwenda giti uratumira anake guturuma taru ni ndirathekire muno ona karigwo nginya ona ke ungimacokeria atia ungigwa mwana ke agikuria ati wina andu acio anga ndurihaga andu ndwikaga ati no kamuria atiri ndungikona andu 1000 na matino kagia kindu no igwa nginya mwana ke we mwenye ndari wira aikarite handu ni togithie mundu ta mundu agithie Cira wa munanda na ndari naki na ng'ombe ona ndari amiona
na we mwenye wa mwitira wira ni eguka ni ekwenda
makiria thayu ndwamenya anake ni mamenyerire guikara u na kiria anake aitu ni tukwendo tumarute kacha ya kuruta wira taru ni ngwiraga na wetu anaria muno ni ndari kwa andu ametagwo special force ndaumire kwa andu a jeshi paratroopers na kundu ni kundu tukagira 5 ugacoka ugakoma mugitika training ugakoma 3 koguo ina mathaa meri kacha yo ri ndire auma andu ta ithwi ati ni ukuruta wira extra hours hau mbere na ni ndarutirwo ni my father ni ndirikanaga ndarikia form 4 uguo adigire muthenya umwe toro agithie wira auma wira hwaini acokire ihenya tondu akorwo nyahururu hindi iyo acokire ihenya akinjira ithu turi arume aya eri nyumba
eno
na nie ndingiguthia guthukumira wi toro ukira ithe ndikorire anake haria nja makiruta wira mujengo rucini onawe acio no ciana cia atumia uthiha nini ndirikanaga ndaumire rucini tondu niwe tigira ngihura kogoto hau nja na anake koguo no igwe ru nwanjie kwirwo atiriri ati hatiri kindu gia buri koguo nio na igwe ndutite mujengo na tukahura thimiti na tukahura kogoto na hindi uroigwa ati umite ati ureciria ati ndwagirire no igwe no wanjie kuonio haria wagirwo ni gucoka koguo ni njugaga ati anake aitu na ciana citu ria turacirera na ni njokagiria my late father na mam giteo muno tondu ni matuheire kacha ya kumutunia ndungithie mundu mugima kinyitie miaka 18 akome nyumba we uthio muthukumire na riu hau niho aciari itu nao maragwa tondu marenda gwita nginya mundu ina miaka 20 kababa tondu ndwarerirwo nie wakwo riu rakinyirie tondu no murakinyirie 18 na kende mwira ndingi mutiga nyumba oke office athie na technicians mathi makohe waya tondu ungimwaga uguo eciria ati hena indo cie hau mundu ucio ndageka atia ndakara matakiria kio koguo nie ndiramera ona anake aya itu ni tutige kumatumira ati mundu ni akumutumira mana akaheo print out thie warie undu muna na warie undu muna na andu anginyo na matue concept taru no igwe muthuri ni athiete ni athiete kundu ni marageria gwiciria uria technology ria monete ko ni kundu ta South Africa na kuria kungi uria mangi incop guku iteithia Wanjiku no andu acio utwikaga enemy taru ajie kuga uguo taru auga ati kwina issues challenges cia security to ni ahutia mundu fulani urari na issue yokora ugatuika an enemy ya muingi tondu no ageria kumateithia wageria gukana kaundu ukaigwa ru mundu uyu ona andu taru ndoria na ni ndiramoria muno hindi no ya campaign ukamona mandikite muno kule social media agaki ukaoria atiri mwanake uyu we mwenyeri ona ira ni arako approach itu muhe magana mau urarega arathi kwe mwenzako niguo akorwo ena itondo this time mena entitlement orio kuragia kana kanini nikakurugamagia riu ukienda githurano gakwira we simama rugama na kajia gukwira no to nawe ni giti urenda ri na hihi ndugukienda kuoneka ta wina kiria ri ukaigua mundu cio uria mwanjia gutwarana na riu no igwa ciana ici citu ito no kuigua nginya na kana kanini ugithie campaign gwiciona na ni urona gagikwira nipatie kitu na hindi ukarauka no rume nginya ukona no gakutunyikirie mwanake aroka wetana muka macuhiriire ngari ona ngikirutwo nginya ngari nyamu ici cia iguru
ndona icio ciothe ni kwendia mukwendia tondu gacuhirirwo
riu koguo ri uria turuga ni atiriri tugicenjia atia
no ona hanini hau bwana Njengo ngijitikiria thino mo ukite ri twetha tugaga no tutietha kakihonia tondu tariu ri siasa no mithukitie ni wana siasa ni muteti uri umwe
ni kwa kwajagirite
ndauga atiriri uri umwe
ndi muteti umwe
tondu uri muteti
hetiwe ndirakiuga
we muteti niguo tige gwitwo mwana siasa muru utuike mwana siasa mwega ri wagirwo ni gwika kindu kimwe wakora ciana icio iretia ciringi 200 ri ukamba kwiyuria atiriri na Ivasha ni kuri kiwanja kia mubira kingihururwo mubira mangienda kiwa mbeca kana mangienda mubira na uniform ukoiga mangienda mubira na uniform togu wandikite andu mararuta wira kwanyu na kambuni ro mandikite nayo ukamitania na kambuni niyo no rithe na tunaguo munene muno ri inywe wana siasa ri mwakinya ne guthi gwetha kura ri muratumira mwana wako na wa Njenga aria mathomithitio ni aciari uhoro wa technology ukamwira wethi wega bloggers uhure ngania na ningugwikirira bado cia ngiri thatu ngiraiga ithuĩ wana siasa haria tuhiteirie na haria tukwendwo tucenjie uyu wamba wikire wi hau muhunjigaga atiriri ithuothe turiehia ni kuhera tuheraga tukagira
niwe hia
wakwa niguo riri wajirire handu mwatwanjirire handu tondu taru ungithie ureho opponent waku nake kuga we uru waku nake hindire akire akaigo no tumenye atiriri kiria kitumite bururi uyu witu ukinye haho kinyite ti wothe tungiraiga mahuti Kenya tondu twi haha twambe tumenya twi haha tutware rurire rwitu tondu akorwo kuri andu morite gatika rũrĩrĩ-inĩ rwitũ rwa Mũgĩkũyũ rũrĩrĩ rwitũ no ruo atĩ tarĩu ũmũthĩ ũyũ ũrĩa Mike Njega arauga kamwana kanini gatige kũhe gĩtĩo niĩ nĩ njũĩ tũkĩrerwo tene twetigĩrĩte mũndũ wothe mũnene regardless no wamuonaga okora ũmũthĩ ũyũ rĩ nĩkĩ twĩkĩte ũmũthĩ ũtwĩkĩte tũthiĩte tũkeheria itĩo cia andũ tondũ nĩ ũgũkora mwana siasa mũkũrũ na mwana wa siasa mũnini mararuma mũtongoria mũndũ ũyũ mũkũrũ nĩ ũrathomithio mũnini maũndũ matarĩ mega na nĩreci ithuĩ tuoeka cheo tukanjia gũkomesa kwĩra andũ atĩrĩrĩ ũguo mũreka tiguo wega tondũ twĩna ciana irathoma na inyuĩ na ciana ici gũkobia ũrĩa mũreka na ũguo inyuĩ mweka gĩthurano gĩkĩ mwana wĩna mĩaka 12 ũkĩrĩkia kũingĩra waingĩra na nĩngũmũhoera inyuothe mũingĩre muona waingĩra ũkiuma mwana ona watigĩte na mĩaka 10 agakorwo evota na agakorwo eroreire wega ũrĩa wekaga koguo ũngĩkorwo wahandire mbegũ itarĩ njega harĩa we nĩ wega ũka kũhati makĩria tondũ nayo hĩndĩ ũgakorwo ningĩ ũgetha kũrĩeretwo kahinda ga kerĩ koguo twagĩrĩirwo nĩ tũtikae gũkora kwĩna mahĩtia na tũthiĩ na mahĩtia maya na mbere ũmũthĩ wona tarĩu niĩ ndinona ndirarũgama gĩtĩ no nĩ ndĩratetera tondũ tarĩu ana ũguo mũndũ ũngĩanjũria haha atĩrĩrĩ andũ a matatũ rĩ atĩ ndiĩ ndĩraria ũhoro wa andũ a matatũ kuma njikarire haha na nĩ tũgũkinya hau rĩu rĩ koguo mwana siasa wothe rĩ ithuothe tũnyuĩ mũrĩa na siasa rĩ kana ithuothe tũrateta ona ndĩho rĩ tũrie niĩ atĩrĩrĩ mahĩtia rĩ nĩ hatũngĩanjĩrĩra kũrekereria
na njuge atĩrĩrĩ tukĩaria ũhoro ũguo njoki hau hake hanini ũguo tũraria ũhoro wa rũrĩrĩ ndĩna advantage kana privilege gũkorwo ndĩ cosmopolitan area na hena kĩeha mũno atĩ wathiĩ ward ĩmwe ĩrĩa predominantly ndĩrĩ na Mũgĩkũyũ ndũkoragwo ũgĩcuhĩrĩrwo ona andũ acio amera rĩu nĩ ũguo nĩ ndarĩkia ndĩrenda kũmwĩkĩra ona na nĩ thengio makwĩraga ni kweli tutakupatia kura na magathiĩ
mũndũ okĩra agathiĩ
ona okorwo gũcuhĩrĩire ngakũrũgamĩte ngari-inĩ agũthikĩrĩria wamwĩra nĩ tũkona na mũthenya ũngĩ na ndathiĩ nĩ ngũcoka rĩ ũkona nĩ athiĩ no gũkũ gwitũ ũkĩrĩkio mambaga gũthikĩrĩria no mangĩigua nĩ warĩkia na ndona cina kini majagia kũina opponent waku
nĩ ndathi megithie no tũgathiĩ barabara
ũkaigua manjia kũina
na warega kũmanengera
makanjia kũina mũndũ ũcio
na rĩu ithuĩ tũtikĩ kĩndũ ithuĩ
tũkĩte gwĩka atĩ koguo no njuge atĩrĩrĩ mũndũ wothe ũratũthikĩrĩria wĩ mũciari wĩ mwanake mũnini reke twanjie kwĩyũria ciũria iria very basic nĩ atĩ tũngĩka gũteithia Wanjikũ nĩ hagũkorwo he haritũ na nĩkĩo ndĩrauga andũ ta ithuĩ tani hakwa ngĩrũgama ndĩrarũgama nĩguo tũgerie gũcenjia kĩ maũndũ marĩa makoretwo ho tondũ hatirĩ hĩndĩ tũngĩkorwo na atongoria atĩ nĩo maratuhũka mĩario ĩrĩa mĩnene mũno tondũ ona ũngĩona mũndũ wanyu nyũmba nini ĩciraga ũtukũ atĩ ona angĩkorwo Njenga nĩ tũhĩtanĩtie na tũrĩ amwe handũ ha gũthiĩ kwaria na ũyũ kũmwĩra ũru waku nĩ twambie niĩ nawe twarie na tondũ atongoria itũ no ũrĩa mekire moĩ atĩ tarĩu mũndũ ũrĩa ngwĩciria handũ marathiaga makarĩhwo atĩ ũngĩruma Uhuru maita 20 noguo paycheck yaku ireka atĩa ĩrathiĩ igũrũ tondũ common enemy nĩ Uhuru na mũkageria kũmũcenjia oneke nĩwe mũru no hau matiramenya atĩ Uhuru ndarĩ na thĩna Uhuru ona kuma mweri 10 arenda gĩtĩ gĩkĩ atĩa ahurũke no atũtiga kũrĩa gwitũ na Naivasha tũrĩ andũ 100 rĩa 67 arĩa maraikia kura twina ward 8 ward imwe hena ward imwe ha tauni ena
ngũ nĩ constituency tu
imwe ĩrarĩgani maita mau matatũ
tirakeregire BBI
na mũndũ ũrĩa witũ twinake kũu avotire no ino nginya ũkamaka ũguo ũkaigua tongirĩra maithori wona atĩ mũndũ arathiĩ kauga ndavote no na ndavote no nĩ ũndũ wa Wanjikũ atĩ nĩguo aherie Uhuru arahera
kama hau tu kidogo kama hau kirori ni ndenda njuke nĩguo ndigakũrenge ũkiruta point yaku hendeke mwe tungie na kimenyithia kĩa wonjoria tucoke na nĩ tũkũrania atĩrĩrĩ nĩguo ũcio nĩ mũmbunge ũmwe warega constituency ĩgayanio ena andũ 100
rĩa
65 koguo mũndũ ũcio rĩ ũngĩthiĩ region ingĩ ĩyo nĩ county ng'ima
Ramu
iyo ni county
Ramu complete
iraheo bilioni
kenda iraingira kuu constituency imwe no arega igaywo nĩ gũkĩmaanisha andũ aya megwĩtwo ateti matiendaga mũndũ ũrĩa ũngĩ agĩthiĩ na mbere niguo tondu arenda gwitura we oye iture we oi ni ndakoire basari
political scientist maugaga atiriri ukenda kwatha andu make them poor.
Yes,
ndai kemwe kaito ikirie tabarira ya Kimuri ndungigwa maundu maya kuma kundu kungi tiga thiini wa Kimuri University tuikirie soke kaida atari kunene.
Ni 2:10 time.
You want some? To keep my family healthy and happy, I only choose 210 flour.
Sunny, what did you learn today?
I learned to count to 10.
Show me.
To 10.
Your family's choice for maize meal and home baking flour. Unga wa 210.
Reu no wegwatire rwimbo ruru tasikiza tune yaku akirundu raithi muno hihinya *811 *344# ogikene muno ririkana Inoro ni musie wa aini othe.
Introducing a new way to earn cash every time you buy airtime. Simply dial *487*2#. Buy airtime, pay for electricity or water bills for you or someone else, and get paid papo hapo. Usinunue airtime na tokens bure bure tu. Earn instantly with *487*2#. Dial *487*2# now.
ni ngatho nyingi muno ni guthi na mbere na guikarania na ithuĩ ni tabarĩra ya Kimuri. Asante sana inyuothe mũrathiĩ na mbere na gũtwandĩkĩra. Ni ngũkorwo ngĩthoma SMS yanyu kaida gatarĩ kũnene na rĩrĩ gĩthurano gĩthiĩte na mbere gũkuhĩrĩria. Tũtigĩtie thikũ 17 nginya rĩrĩa mũgathiĩ gũikia kura. Andũ nĩ manjĩtie gũcokanĩrĩra na makanjia kũrania ciũria nene mũno. Atongoria a kanitha, athuri a mĩhĩrĩga na andũ angĩ mbalimbali nĩ macemanĩtie kĩharo-inĩ gĩa Kĩrũgũya kũrĩa marakorwo magĩtabania mahoya ma kũhoera bũrũri nĩguo gũkagĩa na ũhoreri na gũkagĩa na thayũ kahinda-inĩ kau. Nĩ tũgũkorwo tũkĩnyitanĩra na Mbũni wa Thuku kahinda gatarĩ kũnene kuma mwena ũcio wa Kĩrĩnyaga, no wakairie tũthiĩte Kĩrĩnyaga reke tũthiĩ ĩmwe kwa ĩmwe nginya kũrĩa mwena wa Milimani Court kũrĩa ekwĩrwo njũragano ya wakiri Willie Kimani, dereva wa taxi Joseph Muiruri na ũrĩa warĩ wakiri Kimani makoretwo magĩthiĩ igoti-inĩ gwa kahinda ka mĩaka 5. Ũmũthĩ nĩguo jaji egũkorwo akĩmatuĩra. Reke tũingĩre kũu tũigue kũhana atĩa.
Where I went, I don't need to elaborate. Now the accused will stand as the judgment is being read. Can they have space so that they can be comfortable? It's a long journey. So the 5 accused persons have been charged with 3 counts of murder of 3 persons, namely Willie Kimani, Kenodia, an advocate of human rights, crusader, an advocate and human rights crusader working with the International Justice Mission, herein after the first deceased, one Josephat Mwenda Mwadhi, who was a client of the first deceased and previously a boda rider in Lolongo area, herein after the second deceased, and one Joseph Muiruri, who was a taxi operator and who had been hired by IJM to ferry the first and the second deceased to Mavoko Law Courts on the 23rd of June 2016, herein after the third deceased. Now they were arraigned before the High Court with 3 counts of murder contra section 203 as read to Section 204 of the Penal Code, the laws of Kenya. Now, the particulars of the 3 counts are the same, that on the night of the 23rd and 24th of June 2016, at Soweto area in Mlolongo within Machakos County, jointly with others not before the court, they murdered Willie Kimani in count number 1, Josephat Mwenda Mwadhi in count number 2, and Joseph Vinguri Mwirori in count number 3. Now, it is important to mention that I took over this case on the 14th of February 2017 from Honorable Sitati J, as she then was, who had 2 witnesses, and I commenced hearing from her honor, from where with the consent of all the parties. In this case, this court has made a record 5 substantive rulings, one of which was on a novel area of law, which was cited with approval by the Court of Appeal sitting in Kisumu, as it considered a similar application, and out of which an appeal was made to the Supreme Court. Now, the accused persons, let me set out who the accused persons are. The first to the 4th accused persons were all administration police officers. The first and the 4th accused were stationed at Mlolongo Police Station, and the 2nd and the 3rd accused stationed at Syokimau Administration Camp, Police Camp. The first accused was the leader of the SPIV unit, where he worked with the 4th accused, PW26, 1 PC Wawero, and 1 PC Mwaneki. The 2nd and the 3rd accused persons performed general duties at Syokimau Police Post. On the week the incident took place, the 2nd accused was the one in charge of duty at the post. Inspector Cheboy, who was not called as a witness, was the officer in charge of Syokimau Police Post. The 5th accused was a businessman in Waithaka, dealing in clothes, and a civilian who doubled up as a police informer, and one who worked closely with the OCS Mlolongo, Chief Inspector Lele, in the latter's previous postings before joining Mlolongo Police Station in the same capacity. Now, the counsels in the case, the lead prosecution counsel in this matter was Mr. Nicholas Motuko, learned counsel, who was assisted for the most part by Ms. Mbula Rubia. I hope I got the name correctly. Learned counsel for the first and the 2nd accused persons was the learned counsel, Mr. Cliff Ombeta. For the 3rd accused, and for the most part was learned counsel, Mr. Kato Kigen. For the 4th accused was learned counsel, Mr. James Muchere, and for the 5th accused was the learned counsel, Mrs. Nelias Kenyori, and subsequently the defense of the 5th accused was taken over by learned counsel, Mr. Kevin Muchoki, who came in after the evidence of PW38. On the side of the victims, we had senior counsel Dr. Fredo Jambo, while learned counsels Professor Ben Sihanya and Mr. Sipi Nongaro represented the Law Society of Kenya and victims, and learned counsel Ms. Mushemi held a watching brief for International Justice Mission. In all, the prosecution called 46 witnesses and an additional number for the trial within a trial held to determine admissibility of Exhibit 90, that was a statement and an inquiry, a confession by the 5th accused, which he retracted at the trial. The prosecution produced 117 exhibits. On the defense side, in total, 14 witnesses testified, inclusive of the accused persons. Now, PW41 Chief Inspector Owino was based at the flying squad at Nairobi area on the 24th of June 2016, when officers from IJM, including PW13, PW1, and PW7, visited the station. He stated that upon receiving their report, in consultation with his seniors, he was given the duty to head investigations into the missing persons report. He stated that for purposes of speed and efficiency, he formed a syndicate of 3 teams. Now, one team was led by Inspector Chemelin, who was PW 36, assisted by Corporal Olesena at the time, PW 44. PW 44 was an investigator in cyber investigations with DCI with training in that area. The mandate of the two officers was to do the call data analysis and call site analysis that involved analyzing data captured at the various sites and were to follow up with the Police Integrity Command and Control Center, that is IC3, that was capable of analyzing movements through data. The second syndicate was headed by Corporal Mucheru, who was PW 14, and PC Serem, who was PW 28. They were to handle crime scene management. They were to handle all the scenes right from the onset of the investigations. They were to assist in directing what should be done at every scene. PC Serem was from crime scene services and took photographs and measurements of various scenes. The third syndicate was headed by PW 41, and he worked with officers including Inspector Makoma, PC Tanui. Their responsibility was to ensure statements of persons who came into contact with the deceased were recorded and analyzed for evidential value. The gist of the prosecution case is that the first accused had a personal vendetta against the second deceased, who had reported him to the IPOA and was relentless in pursuit of the complaint. It is the prosecution case that in order to intimidate the second deceased, the first accused had the second deceased arrested, and in two of those occasions had him charged before the court. The cases registered against him were two. These were Mavoko criminal case number 226 of 2015, and the case file was Exhibit 1A, and the charge sheet was Exhibit 1B. Mavoko traffic case number 1650 of 2015, the case file was Exhibit 2A, and the charge sheet was Exhibit 2B, both before Mavoko Principal Court. In both cases, the first accused was a key witness. By the time the deceased persons died, these two cases were still pending before the Principal Magistrates Court at Mavoko. The prosecution is that on the 23rd day of June 2016, when the second deceased was set to attend his hearing in the traffic case, the 5 accused persons connived to have the second deceased arrested. In the process of arresting him, the first and the third deceased, who were in the company of the second deceased at the time, were equally arrested. It is the case of the prosecution that the 3 deceased were locked up at Syokimau Administration Police Post, also known as Syokimau Administration Chief's Camp, hereinafter the post, at a time when the second accused was in charge and the third accused was on duty as cell sentry and the report office personnel of the post. It is the prosecution's case that the 3 arrested persons were later removed from the post and taken to an open field in Soweto in Molongo, where they were murdered, and that their bodies were ferried through Thika Superhighway to Oldonyo Sapu in Kilimambogo area, Machakos County, and their bodies disposed by dumping over a bridge into the River Adi. The bodies were seen inside the river by PW23, a diver and farmer along the banks of River Adi in Kilimambogo. PW23 was bathing along the river bank on the 23rd of 2016 when he saw human legs 100 meters inside the river. A report he made at Donyosapu police station did not yield any action from the police that day. The police went to the scene the following day, that is 30th of June 2016. On the 30th of June, the 2 bodies of the first and the third deceased were retrieved from the river with the help of PW3 and his neighbor, David Gatumbi. The third body of the second deceased was recovered from the same river the following day, that is on the 1st of July 2016. Upon post-mortem, the pathologists opined that the deceased had succumbed to injuries inflicted by blunt force trauma and strangulation. The prosecution relied on a statement under inquiry, which was Exhibit 90, recorded from the 5th accused, by PW38 on the 9th of August 2020. Indicated conspiracy of the planning and execution of the 3 deceased. As accused as a member of SPIF team at Mlolongo, that in early May 2016, while the 5th accused was at the Mlolongo police canteen, the first accused approached him and told him that he needed his assistance, but did not disclose the nature of the assistance required until the end of May 2016. He stated that the first accused called him on phone and they planned to meet at Connections Bar Mlolongo. That is when he told him of a situation where he shot and injured a man on a motorcycle and that the man was pushing for him to be sacked and jailed with the help of IPOA. That is how the murder was choreographed. The role that the 5th accused was to play was to track the second deceased within Mavoko locals on 23rd of June 2016, where the second deceased was attending the hearing of the case against him. The statement discloses the entire coordination in executing the plot, the court attendance, the kidnap at a railway crossing, their detention at Syokimau Post,
niguo kurathie na mbere kuria igoti-ini ni njui no tugucokereria no uria kugia na hitirafu ya kimitambo kidogo ni njui ni tugucokereria tuthi tuigue itua ria jaji rigukorwo ririku hari andu acio ni miaka ithiangite kuma riria giko kiu gia kihanikire thuri ndirikana giko kiu kihanika ungicoka YouTube-ini ni mundu wa mbere gwika story ona tukimirumira mwaka mugima kuma nginya mere gikoneka undu macio magekeka ndikana afternoon yo kwali Thursday ria twathire na ukukire mambogo thika rwe kagire ukoro ikigira yo kaigira ukauga ni urenda ni ati ukoretwo gika ni ukoretwo mugitirithania ati na andu constituency yo urenda kurugama.
Very good. Mudhuri uyu Mr. Level hena kindu ogire kiaga muno mundu hena gakiria ari riu ni hakwa nguga atiriri network ciakwa ni njaga muno local and international na arafu reke njokirie ngai ngatho ni undu wa ugi kindu in the 1990s kwena migunda kiria 6 parcels of land ni shairo grabbed land, public land dio dakemwa kadi masokie ku dero mitabo ne akoro ngikate ukamake to kanito to get out so Milimani Lokot
confirmed spending the afternoon with him, first by picking her and proceeding to their home for lunch at Valley View Estate. The first accused stated that he was using the police radio phone, prosecution exhibit 36, on the 23rd of June 2016. He explained that the SPIF team radio phone, P exhibit 24, was not assigned to him personally but could be used by any officer in the team. He stated that he was using the radio phone, exhibit 36, on the 22nd of June, but left it charging at the police station. That when he did not find it, he took exhibit 25 from the charger where it was charging. He explained that he did not use the police radio phone, exhibit 25, to call his own radio phone, as he did not know its number, but decided to use it instead. He stated that he stayed with that phone, exhibit 25, for 3 days, including the date of his arrest on the 1st of July 2016, when it was seized by a flying squad from him. He stated that at the time of his arrest, he was carrying an official pistol, and that he had proceeded to flying squad offices where he had been summoned using his personal vehicle. It was KBX 479G. Defense witness number 10, in close examination, informed the court that he issued the first accused with a police radio with exhibit 36 as he posted him to Mlolongo police station after his transfer to Athi River sub-county. Now, the first accused testified that he met Josephat Mwenda for the first time on the 10th of April 2015 when he was called by the OCS, Chief Inspector Moses Wambogo, to go for patrol. That while on patrol that day, the OCS had received a message from village elders that there was a place youth were meeting to play cards, that the report was the youth became pickpocketers in the evenings, that the OCS alerted him and the other officers when the youth started the cards game, to go and apprehend them at around 3 p.m. He testified that while there on that assignment, the second deceased defied his orders to stop, to drop his knife, which he had lifted up as he advanced towards Corporal Jane Ngige, intending to attack her. That it was at that time that he shot him once on the right wrist joint. He testified that he later took him to hospital for treatment. He said that the second deceased was charged for that incident, that at a later date, he was the second deceased was charged with the traffic offenses after he, first accused, and other officers found him riding a motorcycle with 3 pillion riders without a helmet, reflector jacket, among other offenses for which he was charged. Defense witness number 12 was Chief Inspector Robert Sugut, OCS Makindu Police Station. He was called by the first accused and he produced the OBs for Makindu Police Station and Kiboko Police Post, covering 23rd and 24th of June 2016, as well as the cell registers for Makindu Police Station and Kiboko Police Post. He stated that Kiboko was a police post under Makindu Police Station. The OB number 17 of 24th of June 2016 confirms that at 12:07 hours, one prisoner was collected by Senior Sergeant Frederick Leliman and Corporal Richard Nyakundi of Mlolongo Police Station. The second accused gave an unsworn statement. He was defense witness number 1. He accounted for his movements on the 23rd of June 2016. He said that he left the post for Ad River for personal work from 8 a.m., that he proceeded to meet with the third accused at City Cabanas from around 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., where they had gone to see whether the third accused could purchase a cooker, that after they returned to the post, he went to sleep as he was bereaved. He testified that he did not see or hear of anything unbecoming at the post. He did not call any witness. Now, the third accused gave us unsworn defense. She was defense witness number 2. She repeated the same evidence as the second accused about their visit to City Cabanas to check on the cooker. She stated that since she was alone on duty at the post, she left the station in the hands of PW18 between 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., that thereafter she remained at the post until 6 p.m., that she handed over the keys to the cells and the armory to PW21 and left the post just after 6:30 p.m. to her place of business. She said that she did not see anything unusual at the post, nor see anyone brought, held, or removed from the cells the whole day. She called 2 witnesses. Her witness, defense witness number 3, testified that on the 23rd of June 2016, he met Sylvia, that is the third accused, outside the post waiting for a motorcycle at about 6:40 p.m., that he was driving his motor vehicle KBJ 038C Mark II Toyota, in which he gave her a lift. He testified that he dropped that accused off at Mlolongo at 7:10 p.m. Defense witness number 4, Corporal Faith, was the second witness called by the third accused. She testified that the exit entry, she identified the exit entry she made in the OB number 4 of 23rd of June 2016 at 1700 hours after reporting off duty as day guard at Unitas Bank in Mlolongo. She testified that the officer on duty at the report office desk at the post that day was the third accused. She stated that when she went to the report office at around 5, she did not find Sylvia at the report desk where the OB was. She stated that the OB number 5 of 23rd of June 2016 has an entry by the third accused at 1800 hours, which was entered immediately after hers. She said that when she looked at the OB, she did not see any entry of persons having been taken to the post, nor was she informed of anyone who had been brought to that post. She testified that it was possible to see people in the cells from the report office where the OB was kept, but that on that evening, she did not see anyone in the cells. Defense witness number 5, Corporal Catherine Mutisia, was sent by the OCS Mlolongo Police Station, 1 Chief Inspector Joachim Kangangi, to produce the occurrence book for the station that had been requested by Mr. Ombeta for the first and second accused. It covered the period including 24th of June 2016. The fourth accused gave a sworn defense and called 6 witnesses. He was defense witness number 6. His defense was that he got permission to leave the station for purpose of visiting his family from the evening of the 22nd of June 2016, and that he returned to his workstation at Mlolongo Police Station on the 27th of June 2016. He identified Police Exhibit 111 as the marching orders signed by the ward commander of the area, which included the post and Mlolongo Police Station, Inspector Cheboy, as proof he was given permission to be away. The fourth accused gave details of how he spent the day of the 23rd of June 2016 within Roiro and Thika. He said that that morning he was at Morera Farm, Roiro, where his house was. He said that after establishing that Inspector Getonga, defense witness number 8, was to take him to his house construction site, was on his way from Nairobi to meet him. He left his house at 1:03 p.m. They met, visited the site, then had lunch and parted at 3:30 p.m. He testified that he left for Thika town, where he met defense witness number 9, Julius Moiro, at 4:50 p.m. After parting with him at 6:10, he called the sister who was defense witness number 11, and met her in the same evening at Thika. Now, defense witness number 7 was the wife of the fourth accused. She informed the court that he went home on the evening of 22nd of June 2016 and remained there until 27th of June 2016. That she left him home every morning as she went to work, and every evening she met him at home after work. On the other hand, defense witness number 8 said that he was with the fourth accused at Roiro on the 23rd of June 2016 from around 1 p.m. and that they parted at around 3 p.m. Defense witness number 9 and 11, the siblings, confirmed being with the fourth accused on 23rd of June 2016 at different times between 5 and 6 p.m. Now, defense witness number 10 was Commissioner of Police and was sub-county head of the Administration Police Formation within Ad River, which covered the post and Mlolongo Police Station. He confirmed that the fourth accused was from the Administration Police Formation attached to Mlolongo Police Station. This witness confirmed that the marching order, which was Prosecution Exhibit 111, was signed by Inspector Cheboy as the senior officer in charge of administration officers at the post and at Mlolongo Police Station, and was therefore a genuine document. He stated that prior to issuing the marching order, Inspector Cheboy had called him over the request by the fourth accused to be off work for 5 days from 22nd June 2016, and that he gave permission empowering Inspector Cheboy to issue and sign the marching order. The fifth accused gave a sworn defense. He was defense witness number 17. In his defense, the fifth accused stated that he was a police informer and also a businessman. He said that he knew PW26 PC Kamau because the OCS Lele gave Kamau his number. He said that Lele also gave him Kamau's phone number, and told him that if he ever needed the OCS but he was not available, he could call Kamau. This was happening on the second week of June 2016. He stated that on the 23rd of June, he proceeded to Mlolongo intending to sell jeans to Kamau. He reached there at 8:30 a.m. at the upper stage. That as he did not reach Kamau on phone, as his phone was off, he proceeded to the station where he found him with Waingo, also a police officer, and one Kamenju, a police officer. The fifth accused stated that Kamau gave him an assignment to track a Kamwizi, in quotes, a thief who was going to Mavoko locals that morning. He was supposed to keep tracks of him and to keep reporting back to Kamau. The fifth accused stated that he kept track of the three deceased as required of him, and that at around 11 or 12 p.m., he saw the three deceased persons leaving the court hurriedly. He reported this to Kamau. He said that he was picked up by one Brown at Mavoko Court, that later that day, while in a vehicle NZD at Mlolongo, near the weighbridge, he saw the vehicle the deceased persons had driven off in from Mavoko locals. He testified that he noted that the deceased were not in the vehicle, rather it was one Kamenjo in the vehicle. The accused stated that he was told to take that vehicle to Limuru, and that he was also given a radio phone, that he took the vehicle all the way to Limuru. He later received a call requesting him to go to Mlolongo to receive a reward for the work he had done. He told court that Kamau told him to proceed to Kwa Mudes Bar, past Mulei supermarket. He proceeded there and found Kamau with Waingo, Kamenjo, and Brown. It was 6:30 p.m. or so. Kaki, and told him to get money in an envelope inside the vehicle, described to him, which he did. He got the money. That when he went back to Mudes, he found Kamau and company had ordered some meat, that in half an hour or 45 minutes, a policeman came panting, that he told Kamau that those people he dropped there had called, in quotes, that upon getting the information from one Mwaneki, Kamau, Waingo, Mwaneki, and Brown left quickly, that they did not get back, that past 9 p.m. he was directed to proceed to a certain area where he walked and found a vehicle with hazard lights on, as he had been informed. He found Kamau with Kamenjo, Brown, Waweru, and Mwaneki. They were standing, but not together. He testified that Kamau asked him to sit inside the car, which he did, that he did not know where the thieves were, but that he was told they would go to Thika. That there were two vehicles, and all of them together were 7. He said he was told that he would be one of the drivers and that he would travel with Kamenjo and Brown because they were the cigarette smokers. The other car was carrying Kamau, Waweru, Waingo, and Mwaneki. That before they left the bush area, Kamau's vehicle went ahead of theirs. The vehicle stopped near a tarmac road, and he also stopped behind it, and that it was where Senior, that is the first accused Leliman, brought the money to purchase fuel. That he gave Kamau the money because he was driving a station vehicle, that they proceeded to Thika, drove past the town to a place he had in a bush area, that they stopped by the bridge, opened the boots of the two vehicles, and he saw the others with him removing heavy gunny bags from the boot of the two. The gunny bags were thrown into the river below over the bridge. He described the gunny bags as long and heavy luggage. He testified that he was told to turn the vehicle and that they returned to Mlolongo the same way they had left, arriving there at 4 a.m. He said that they went to where he later learned was the first accused bar, where he bought them a lot of roast meat and alcohol. He said that he drank until he passed out and woke up many hours later at 10 a.m. In cross-examination by the state, the fifth accused told the court that on the morning of 23rd of June 2016, Kamau called him at 6 a.m., asked him to go to Mlolongo to meet him, that on arriving there, Kamau gave him his Airtel number, 0723033635, saying his Safaricom number was down and that he used his phone number, 0727433431, to communicate with Kamau. He was given an assignment by Kamau, and it involved tracking the 3 deceased at Mavoko locals, that he and Kamau left Mlolongo police station in the company of Kamenjo and Waingo, both police officers. He testified that Kamau was calling another person within the course, after which he would call him as they tracked the deceased within the court precincts. In cross-examination, the 5th accused admitted that as his phone data showed, he went to Mlolongo between 22nd and 30th of June 2016. Now, in cross-examination by the Counsel for the Law Society and victims, the 5th accused said that he was not denying that he was involved in the murders of the deceased, but that he was saying that he was being used and that by that time he did not know what was happening and that he deeply regretted what happened. He said that he was so relieved after releasing the information to court, as it has been such a heavy burden in his heart. In cross-examination by the counsel for the 1st and 2nd accused, the 5th accused testified that he and police came up with a story, which is what was reduced to the confession. He said that he was promised by PW 44 and 45 to be made a state witness and a salary of 30,000 per month, house rent, and 200,000 to move his wife's business. The 5th accused testified that on the 8th of November 2021, he came to court for a session, that the 1st accused gave him 15,000 shillings as an inducement that he does not mention the name of the 1st accused in connection with the murders. The 5th accused said that he ate lunch with 1,000 and surrendered 14,000 shillings on return to prison. The 5th accused called a witness who was defense witness number 19, Superintendent of Prisons, in documentation section, Naivasha Maximum, who receives and keeps cash from prisoners. Witness number 19 testified that the entry of the 8th of November 2021 was a cash on admission, shows that 14,000 shillings was received from the 5th accused on readmission to prison from court that day. Now, Mr. Ombeta recalled the 1st accused, who gave evidence denying giving any such money to the 5th accused. I have considered the entire evidence that was adduced in this case, both by the prosecution and the defense, together with the submissions of counsel for the state, the defense, and counsel for victims, the digest of cases cited, and the list and bundle of authorities. Unfortunately, due to bereavement, Dr. Fred Ojambo, senior counsel, who was the counsel for the victims, was unable to file any submissions in the case. So the accused persons are charged with 3 counts of murder, contrary to section 203 of the Penal Code. There are 5. The offense of murder constitutes 4 ingredients. That is, the deceased died, that their death was unlawful, that at the time the accused committed the act or made the omission which caused the death of the deceased, the accused had formed the necessary intention to cause the death or grievous harm of the deceased. 4, that the evidence on record establishes a nexus between the death of the deceased person and the unlawful act or omission of the accused that caused the death. Now, there are 5 accused charged in with this offense. The prosecution has the burden to establish that the accused persons acted in one common intention or joint concert as principal offenders to commit the offense. Now, malice aforethought is an integral part of the offense of murder. It is a technical term associated with the state of mind of the accused charged with the offense of murder, as at the time the act or omission which caused death was executed, the prosecution must prove that the act or acts or omissions of the accused persons that caused death were actuated by malice. The circumstances which constitute malice are defined under Section 206 of the Penal Code. As for the burden of proof, it is a principle of law entrenched in the Constitution under Article 52A that an accused person is presumed to be innocent until the contrary is proved. That burden of proof lies with the prosecution, while the standard of proof required is one beyond any reasonable doubt. Under the Evidence Act, under Section 107(1), provides that whoever desires any court to give judgment as to any right or liability dependent on the existence of facts which he asserts must prove those facts exist. As to what constitutes proof beyond any reasonable doubt, I've quoted a case on that. Now, the issues for determination. The onus and the evidential burden lies with the prosecution to prove their case against the accused persons beyond any reasonable doubt. Upon considering the evidence adduced by both parties in this case and their submissions by counsel, I found that the issues which are for determination are whether this court was coram non judice, or put simply, whether this court lacks jurisdiction to conclude the trial on account of appointment to a higher bench before the trial was finalized. 2, whether the DNA analysis report by the government chemist should be rejected for non-compliance with Section 122A of the Penal Code. 3, whether the retracted confession of the fifth accused has any probative value, and if so, to what extent. Whether the prosecution has proved motive. Whether the prosecution has established that the accused persons had formed the necessary malice aforethought to commit murder. Whether the prosecution has established that the accused persons acted with one common intention or are principal offenders to commit the offense. Whether the circumstantial evidence adduced was sufficient to lead to a conclusion that the accused persons murdered the deceased persons, and whether the alibi defense put forward by the accused persons holds. Now, on coram non judice, as to whether this court lacked jurisdiction to conclude the trial because of appointment to a higher bench, counsel for the fifth accused, Mr. Michoki, raised this issue after the close of the entire case as part of his final submissions. He submitted that this court lacked jurisdiction over the subject matter based on the presiding judge's appointment as a judge of the Court of Appeal, pursuant to Gazette note which he read for us. He questioned whether I could concurrently exercise the powers of both offices, and urged that it appeared readily apparent that appointment to the office of the judge of the Court of Appeal automatically repealed the previous appointment as a judge of the High Court by necessary implication. Counsel also relied on a case, Nyambuto, Umwenga, and 2 others, for the proposition that courts are and can exercise only such powers as are vested on them by the Constitution and the statutes, and no other. Counsel also took a swipe at the actions of the Chief Justice to confer jurisdiction administratively, which counsel urged was and still is ultra vires the powers of the office. For that proposition, he cited a Supreme Court case, that is Republic versus Karisa Chengo. The appropriate time to raise the issue of jurisdiction, Mr. Michoki urged that it was a fundamental issue in the proceedings and could be raised at any point in the proceedings. On the issue of jurisdiction raised by Mr. Michoki for the fifth accused, it was the submissions of Mr. Mutuko, learned counsel for the state, that raising the issue in the final submissions was in bad faith and an attempt to delay further the conclusion of this matter and avoid culpability. Counsel urged that when the court mentioned the case on 1st of July 2021, almost a month after taking the oath of office to the Court of Appeal, the party those judges who had to the Court of Appeal who had partly had matters advanced in nature pending before them to finalize them. Counsel urged that it is at that point or that time that the issues of jurisdiction ought to have been raised. Mr. Mutuku urged that by not raising quorum non judice at that juncture, it is acquires his right to raise that issue. Now, regarding the case, Mr. Mutuku adds that at the time of the had 42 prosecution witnesses, with 2 prosecution witnesses remaining to close of the case. It was his submission that this court's ascension to the Court of Appeal did not rob the court of the unlimited original jurisdiction to conclude the matter. It's not a new occurrence in Kenya's history in the administration of criminal justice. He drew court's attention to the 6th announcement of the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board, dated 15th of January 2013, by Sharad Rao, who was chairman. High Court in 2011 and 2012, who sought for and obtained leave from the Chief Justice to be off higher courts in order to finalize their pending matters in the High Court. I've considered the submissions of learned counsel Mr. Michuki and also Mr. Mutuku on the issue of quorum non judice. The arguments of Mr. Michuki are that after this court heard the entire case, it ceased to have jurisdiction to write judgment on grounds it has since taken oath to serve in a higher bench. He quoted no legal provision to support that position. At the same time, he acknowledged that there was no law that spelled out which court had jurisdiction to hear murder cases was out of practice and custom in exercise of its original jurisdiction. If I heard Mr. Michuki well, he was at a loss whether the law supports the trial of murder charges cases by the that have jurisdiction to hear the case in the first place. He is not alone in that dilemma. The issue of the jurisdiction of the High Court to hold murder trials was the subject of a case, that is Charles Henry Nyaoke versus Cabinet Secretary for Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government and 4 others. It was a High Court petition, Kisumu, in which I was the presiding judge. Now, in that case, the court observed, and I quote, as regards criminal cases, the criminal procedure court in the exercise of its original jurisdiction in criminal cases under Part 2 titled Powers of Courts. It provides, subject to this court, an offense under the Penal Code may be tried by the High Court or a sub-bond court, by which offense is shown in the 5th column of the first schedule to this court to be triable. An offense under any law other than the Penal Code shall, where the court is not mentioned in that behalf. Now, where no court is mentioned, it may, subject to this court, be tried by the High Court or by a offense is shown in the 5th column of the first schedule to this court to be triable. The 5th column, the first schedule of the Criminal Procedure Code, the court which may try a person charged with murder under Section 203 of the Penal Code is not indicated. We have carefully evaluated the rival submissions made by the parties. That the parties herein are asking the court to interpret Article 165(3)(c) of the Constitution to determine the delineation of the jurisdiction of the High Court in hearing and determining criminal matters in exercise of its original jurisdiction. In the petition, it is apparent to this court hear murder and treason charges under the Penal Code under Section 4 and 5(2) of the Criminal Procedure Code may appear to be arbitral if the history and the context is not taken into consideration. For the proper understanding why murder and treason are currently the only charges that are tried by the High Court in exercise of its original jurisdiction, it is important to set out. Now, other than the statutory requirements and the criminal repealed, it is apparent that the trial of murder charges before the High Court, close quote. Now, the issue whether this right judgment calls for a holistic consideration of the values and principles of the Constitution, as well as the circumstances of the case and the parties and the public interest, if any. I do not ascribe to Mr. Michoke's submission that it appeared readily apparent that appointment to the office of the Judge of the Court of Appeal automatically repealed the previous appointment as a Judge of the High Court. To repeal means to revoke or to rescind. The definition of a repeal is the act of taking something back, to reverse, approbate, annul, invalidate, nullify, void, recant, retract, and all those. In order to repeal an appointment that had been gazetted, the same process would have had to be undertaken. It would have to be gazetted. It cannot stand revoked by necessary implication, as counsel has suggested or urged. The Constitution did not provide transitional provisions dictating or providing for what should happen to partly heard matters. The judge is elevated to a higher bench. It did not prescribe either whether a judge elevated to a higher bench could finalize pending matters. The Constitution is dead silent on this issue. Does silence mean that the Constitution has ousted the jurisdiction of a judge elevated to higher bench to conclude its cases upon elevation? So the principle applicable in interpretation of articles of Constitution set out, I've quoted a case by Judge Mwita. I agree with Mr. Mutuku that directions given by the Honorable the Chief Justice to the judges appointed from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to complete their respective advanced partly heard matters was an administrative action that was authored or anchored in the law, Section 16A, C, and E of the High Court Organization and Administration Act number 27 of 2015, and likewise Section 5 of the Judicial Service Act, which is also in tandem with the High Court Organization and Administration Act, High Court Organization and Administration Act. I do not want to appear to read the Honorable Chief Justice's mind when she gave the directions in issue. However, the lack of any express guiding provision in the Constitution on the issue must have been an integral reason for the action and direction given by Her Ladyship, the Honorable the Chief Justice, that the Constitution was silent. Thus, the head of the judiciary exercised statutory powers in the two statutes quoted above to guide that process. There can be no vacuum. There can be no occasion for a vacuum that courts of law will fold their hands and say there is nothing they can do because the law is silent. This is why courts intervene. The doctrine of ex debito justitiae has the force of law. I believe that the issue of hearing and disposal of cases, which is the core function of courts in this country, is a matter affecting the dignity, the accessibility, great bearing on the application by courts of constitutional values and principles. Every successive Chief Justice, especially since the promulgation of the Constitution 2010, has enhanced the operationalization of the values and principles of the Constitution, good governance, and the rule of law by framing visions. These visions, shared by way of transformation framework, guided the core function actors and all support system actors in the judiciary on the best practices that guarantee optimal, effectual, expeditious, and responsive functioning of the judiciary and that protect and guarantee access to justice to all. Even before the promulgation of the current constitution, every Chief Justice, through practice, directions, rules, and policies, guided the processes of the judiciary in order to be effective and intentional in giving responsive and seamless services to all her clients and enhance administration of law. To that extent, and in that regard, the impugned direction of the Honorable Chief Justice Martha Koome were not unique, unusual, or novel. Now, I am for the promotion and preservation of equality and equity to all, the accused persons first and foremost, and the victims, the public interest and dignity of the entire trial process. It is important that courts stir public confidence in bearing and determining cases across the board that cannot be effected if courts can commence cases and then abandon them at will on grounds of technicalities or excuses on grounds of quorum non-judice. In order to have a holistic perspective of the issue at hand, it is important to take into account several facts about this case. First, the accused persons were arraigned in court with these charges in 2016, July. Secondly, the matter began before another judge who had 2 witnesses before recusing herself due to the perceived length of the case that made it difficult to abandon her single judge station to attend to this matter. Thirdly, the court has taken 5 years to hear the case, hampered by many factors, and the most challenging being the COVID-19 pandemic that shut down courts for a considerable period. And fourthly, the prosecution, 7 witnesses in the trial within trial, and 19 defense witnesses. That makes a total of 72 witnesses. Fifthly, there were 11 lawyers in this case for the state, the defense, and the victims. Including documentary exhibits and submissions of counsel. Seventhly, this case had 3 witnesses under witness protection. Eighthly, the case involved a public interest issue of grave importance. Ninthly, one of the accused persons, that is the 5th accused, in this case is also under protection and was kept at Naivasha Maximum Prison when his co-accused exhibits for the prosecution and 34 exhibits for the defense. Not to mention that if there is an interruption in the conclusion of the matter and the case is given to another judge to handle, there are several implications. First of all, the cost factor to the public office will be enormous, considering but not limited to state officers who will be engaged in handling the matter. Second, the other important question to consider is what will be the effect or impact of handing over this file to another judge in the criminal division. If they will have to proceed to write judgment, how long will it take the judge to understand the numerous volumes of proceedings before penning down a judgment? And third, what guarantee will there be that witnesses will be found, supposing the matter were to be ordered to be tried afresh 7 years down the line? And fourth, what trauma will the families and colleagues of the deceased continue to suffer due to the prolonged waiting for the final determination of the case? And fifth, what of the accused persons having to have the case start all over again? Even the most strong and patient of them all will have trauma by such a move. I believe that it will be against public interest and public policy, and it will not serve efficacious disposal of this case to adjourn it and hand it over for continuation by another judge. Such an action does not settle well with the need to uphold the purpose, value, and principles of the Constitution, especially those touching on expeditious delivery of justice without unreasonable delay, including advancing the rule of law, human rights, and good governance in exercise of its judicial authority as obligated under Article 259(2)(e) of the Constitution, constitutional values, principles, and the rule of law and public interest will be best served by declining the invitation by counsel for the fifth accused to declare this court quorum non judice. Now, the other issue was the identification of the bodies of the deceased persons and the post-mortem examination. The bodies of the deceased persons were identified to the pathologist, who was Dr. Odor Johansen, PW 19. Now, PW 19, the head of forensic medicine and chief government pathologist in the country, stated that on the 1st of July 2016, late in the afternoon, he was informed that there were bodies at City Mortuary that required post-mortem examination. He decided that there was need for X-ray and CT scans to be conducted on the bodies, since there was need to establish whether there were any fractures in the bodies which might be missed out during post-mortem. He asked for the bodies to undergo CT scans at Kenyatta National Hospital, and the same was conducted by Dr. P. Otieno, and the scans the report was part of what was exhibited. Now, PW19 stated that he conducted the post-mortem on the body of Willie Kimani on 4th of July 2016. He stated that he received the CT scan of the subject. The scan indicated that the subject had a fracture on the skull on the left side extending to the front side of the skull into the left bone. He also had multiple skull and facial bone fractures. On post-mortem, PW19 stated that externally, the subject body had features of decomposition, including skin slipping. He stated that the body was distorted, swollen, and was darkening on the lower limbs. Blood was oozing from the mouth and the nose. He further stated that it had a laceration on the right side of the head, which was 2 centimeters long, and abrasions on the forehead. The left side of the head was deformed, and there was a contusion bruise on the back of the left head. He noted a deformation on the right side frontal inside the head, indicative of a fracture underlying it. He indicated that there was a contusion on the back of the head, which was about 120 centimeters from the middle of the head, an abrasion of the right side of the head, an abrasion above the left eye, and an abrasion near the ear. He finally stated that there was an extensive bruise on the anterior wall. PW19 stated that internally the body of the deceased had signs of bleeding on the muscles of the chest, which were more on the right side. He stated that the lungs, the heart, the pancreas, the liver, and intestines, and the spleen were decomposing. The abdomen had bruises on the internal right side. The stomach was empty, and the bruises were noted on the testicles. Now, he further stated that the head had hematoma of the skull, fractures of the left head, of the left skull extending to the front, on the left eyeball and bone surrounding it, that on the right maxilla, upper jaw, and on the cheekbone, there was a fracture. He stated that the subject's brain had liquefied because of decomposition and mixing with the blood. He concluded that the cause of death of the first deceased was due to head injury due to blunt force. The bruising on the left forearm and the left elbow. They can see. Is that the reason of the sound? Okay, he described the bruising on the left forearm and left elbow as defensive injuries and produced the CT scan in respect of the first disease as Exhibit 29, his post-mortem form as Exhibit 29. The CT scan was Exhibit 29A and the post-mortem addendum as Exhibit 29B. PW 19 explained that abrasions and scars could have been caused by a blunt object, while the contusions on the right temporal and cervicular region were caused by a blunt force trauma which caused bleeding under the skin. He stated that the defensive injuries were the ones he saw on the left forearm, and further explained that the injury to the head was very severe because of the extent of the fracture. He stated that it could have been caused by a drop of a stone or object on the head or a drop from a height. He stated that in his opinion, the immediate cause of death was the head injury due to its severity. He stated, PW19 stated that he conducted post-mortem of the third deceased on the 4th of July 2016, and that his CT scan revealed no fractures, no bullet holes, and no cartridges, and his cartridges were normal. He stated that externally, the third deceased body revealed features of decomposition, including skin spillage, swelling and darkening of the skin. He stated that there was blood oozing from his nose and mouth. He further noted a bruise on the left cheek below the ear and a complete ligature mark and bruise around the neck. He stated that internally the third deceased body had a bruising on the surface of the thyroid bone cartilage. The hyoid bone was loose but not fractured, and there was bleeding on the chest. He stated that the lungs, the heart, the intestines, the liver, the kidneys, and the spleen were all decomposing. He further stated that there was a bruising on the scalp on the left and the back side. He stated that the brain was delucified owing to its decomposition and mixing with blood. He further noted a bruise on the spine at the neck region area, hematoma, bruising of the left forearm from the wrist and on the left leg above the ankle and above the left knee. PW19 indicated that his conclusion was that the cause of death of the third deceased was ligature strangulation. He explained that the head injury was inflicted before the rope was tied to the neck. Therefore, the immediate cause of death was the ligature strangulation. He produced the post-mortem report, the CT scan, and the post-mortem addendum, Exhibit 30, 30A, and 30B. Now, PW19 said that he conducted the post-mortem on the second deceased, on the body of the second deceased on the same day as the other two. He stated that the CT scan in respect of the second deceased revealed no fractures on the skeleton and no evidence of bullet entry was seen. PW19 stated that externally the body was decomposing and it had a bruise on the left eye, swelling above the left ear. He also noted an old scar on the inner aspect of the forearm and wrinkling of the foot, which he explained as being a sign of someone being removed from water. PW19 stated that internally the second deceased had hematoma on the thyroid cartilage, bruises on the left chest muscles with internal bleeding. He stated that the lungs, heart, pancreas, liver, kidneys, and the spleen were all decomposing. He noted the bruises on the neck, the left ankle, and left leg below the knee. He made the conclusion that the cause of death of the second disease was injuries to the head, the neck, and the chest. He explained that the hematoma on the thyroid cartilage was indicative of pressure applied to the neck. He further stated that the injury on the forearm was a healing scar. He produced a post-mortem in respect of the second disease as Exhibit 31, CT scan 31A, and the addendum to the post-mortem 31B. PW19 stated that he visited the scene where it was alleged the trio were murdered with an aim of looking for any biological exhibits, but he did not collect anything. He stated that all the injuries on the deceased person's bodies were inflicted when they were alive, because one only bleeds when they are alive. In answer to a question put to him, PW19 testified that with the level of decomposition, it was difficult to see the ligature marks on the bodies. The issue of the cause of death or causation of death raised by Mr. Michoke is a challenge in the area as to whether the fifth accused really knew how the deceased persons were murdered, as it is clear he did not himself either stand by to watch the deceased being murdered or participate in terms of strangling, hitings, assault, or in any such cause, or in any such way cause injury to them. The fact is, by the time they ferried the deceased to River Athi, they were dead as a result of assault executed against them that night. In any event, in addition, the evidence of Dr. Johnson that due to composition, injuries may not have been easy to note. It is clear the deceased were battered by their tormentors. The level of the injuries is evidence of that. The first deceased, I've already said the injuries which they had. So I said that I find no material variation between the confession by the fifth accused and the findings of the pathologist. Now, I must mention that the way to challenge the evidence of an expert, which includes a pathologist, is settled in law. Now, in cases including those that were cited by counsel, there is a Republic versus Landfair, a 1968 one All England report, which says that our view is that the evidence of a doctor, whether he be a police surgeon or anyone else, should be accepted unless the doctor himself shows that it ought not to be, as the evidence of a professional man giving independent expert evidence with the sole desire of assisting the court. And the famous one of Dali versus Republic, that it is now tried law that while the courts must give proper respect to the opinion of experts, such an experts are not, as it were, binding on the courts, and the courts must accept them. Such evidence must be considered along with other evidence available. And if there is a proper cogent basis for rejecting the expert opinion, a court would be perfectly entitled to do so. There was no challenge to the findings of the pathologists on the post-mortem examination of the deceased bodies. No question was put to Dr. Odor to explain his findings or expound on the basis of his findings. I appreciate that Mr. Michoke was not present when the pathologist testified. However, he had the right to recall him for further cross-examination when he came into the case, as he exercised in respect of the government chemist, Dr. Kimani. Now, having taken into consideration the findings by the pathologist and the circumstances under which the bodies were found, which I don't want to repeat, I find that the expert opinion of the pathologist was proper and cogent, and that there is no grounds not to accept his evidence. I'm satisfied that the prosecution case as to the cause of death was clear and confirms that the deceased persons were murdered. Now, whether the DNA analysis report by the government chemist should be rejected for non-compliance with sections 122A, B, C, and D of the Penal Code. Now, Dr. Kimani was PW32, the government analyst. He told the court that on the 30th, they received exhibits and swaps. That is on 3 occasions, 13th of July, 15th of July of 2016, and 29th of August 2016. Now, Mr. Michoke submitted that the right of the accused person was violated because the samples taken from him were illegally acquired evidence contrary to Article 50, sub-Article 4 of the Constitution. He challenged the admission of Exhibit 72, the government chemist report, which included the results of the analysis of samples illegally taken from the fifth accused. Council relied on the provisions of sections 122A, B, C, D of the Penal Code and urged that PW 44 and 45, both officers below the rank of the inspectors, took the fifth accused for DNA sampling without an order of an inspector or above and without the consent of the fifth accused and also without a court order. Now, from the foregoing, I've quoted section 122A, A and C. So I say that from the foregoing provisions, a DNA sample can only be procured if a police officer from the rank of an inspector orders for it or a court gives an order that the sample be procured from a suspect or the subject himself consents to the giving of the samples. There is no doubt that PW 44 and 45 were at the time the samples were taken from the fifth accused of the ranks below that of inspector, empowered to take specimen in accordance with section 122A of the Penal Code. Their evidence was that they escorted the fifth accused on instructions from Chief Inspector Owino, but produced no written order authorizing the extraction of the samples from the fifth accused, as the law requires. Additionally, the evidence adduced by the prosecution is clear that no consent was obtained from the fifth accused in writing authorizing the extraction of the samples as required by law. That said, I find the objection raised by the fifth accused in this regard an academic exercise. This is because in his own defense, the fifth accused person placed himself at the scene of the lockers in quo, where the exhibits for which DNA samples was required were recovered. The fifth accused admitted that he was at Soweto open fields at the time the deceased were murdered. He gave graphic details of how he sat in the car, smoking, and how he threw the cigarette butts to the ground outside the car by opening the window slightly in order to do so. So having admitted that he was at the scene on the material time, that he discarded several cigarette butts there from where the police recovered them, that alone is an admission, and considering it against other evidence establishes without a doubt that he was at the scene of murder at the material time. Even without the samples taken from him, I found that there was sufficient evidence with which to find that the fifth accused was at the lockers in quo in Soweto open field at the time the deceased were murdered. Now there is a historical background. So in this background, I will discuss how it all began. So the issue that degenerated into become this case began with an encounter between the second deceased and the first accused. And regarding that, Mr. Ombeta, for the first and second accused person, urged that the evidence regarding the second arrest of the second deceased was contradictory. He took issue with the alleged arrest, urging it was not clear whether he was arrested near Muli's supermarket or outside his house. And secondly, Learned Counsel Mr. Ombeta urged that PW 44, one of the key investigators of this case, agreed in his evidence that a police officer could arrest a person as many times as he is suspected to have committed an offense. I will consider the evidence adduced by the witnesses to determine these issues. So the very first encounter between the first accused and the second deceased was on the 10th of April 2015. The first accused and other officers were on duty near Mule's supermarket within Lolongo police station area, while the second deceased was engaged in his employment as a boda rider. It was during the evening hours. PW4, the wife of the second deceased, provided the information concerning this encounter as she was informed by her husband. Now, PW35, the IPOA investigator, recorded a statement from the second deceased on the 27th of July 2015, outlining his complaint against the first accused on the basis of this first encounter, which is also consistent. Now, PW5 and PW1 also received the information concerning this encounter from the second accused as well. So PW5 received it during an interview held between the 1st and the 6th of January 2016. PW1 handled the defense of the second accused, a second deceased in court for the two cases against him and got first-hand information. Now, before delving into the relationship between the first accused and the second deceased, let me mention that the first accused admitted that he shot the second deceased, but maintained that it was in defense of his colleague, a policewoman, and explained that the bullet hit the second deceased on the right wrist. I will come back to this later when considering the doctor's findings as per P3 form, which was Exhibit 76, to confirm the actual position. The first accused contended that the second deceased was about to attack his colleague, Corporal Jane Ngige, with a knife, and after warning him 3 times to put the knife down, he shot him. Now, PW35 was an investigator with IPOA. He testified that the second deceased made a complaint with IPOA on the 25th of July 2015 through an official IPOA complaint form, which was Exhibit 74. The complaint was handed over to him to deal, and he opened a complaint file. He testified that on 27th of July 2015, he invited the second deceased to his office where he made a statement, which PW35 reduced in writing, signed on every page by the second deceased. In brief, the statement was to the effect that the second deceased was shot by a policeman who was in company of a policewoman, that the policeman told the policewoman that he had shot the second deceased by mistake, that the policewoman told him to trump up charges against the second deceased to justify the shooting, that the policewoman gave him first aid, and after which he was taken with the vehicle registration number KBX 429G to Shalom Hospital, that after he was x-rayed at the hospital, he was locked up in the cells at Mlolongo Police Station from Friday to Monday with charges of being in possession of bangi and gambling in public. PW35 testified that he saw an injury on the right upper arm of the second deceased, but that he did not have a P3 form at the time, and he wrote in his statement that officers from Mlolongo refused to issue him with the form. PW35 testified that he personally went to see the OCS, Mlolongo Police Station, and told him that a P3 form should be issued to the second deceased, that it was issued on the 10th of September 2015 and completed by one Maureen Mudeo, a medical officer, on the 14th of September 2015. The P3 form was P Exhibit 76. It indicates that the second deceased had 4 scars of bullet injuries, an entry and exit bullet on the right upper arm, and 2 bullet wound scars, an entry wound on the lateral chest below the armpit, and an exit bullet wound on the posterior on the posterior chest. So the P3 form shows that the second deceased was shot on the right upper arm and the upper chest. The first accused evidence that he hit him on the right wrist is not supported by the doctor's findings. PW4 also made a mistake when she said that her husband, that is the second deceased, had injuries on the left lower hand. Now, PW35 testified that on the 14th of March 2016, the second deceased went to see him accompanied by the first deceased, who left them alone. He said that the second deceased appeared to be in fear and told him that he had more information concerning further encounters with the police. Briefly, the second deceased lamented about an incident that had taken place on the 13th of December 2015, in which the first accused, the OCS Mlolongo's Chief Inspector Wambugu, and a policewoman, one Emily, took him from his home, blindfolded him, and threatened to kill him if he cooperated with the IPOA. That the same police officers were the ones present during the shooting incident. PW35 said that he recorded the statement of the second deceased as part of his investigations, and it was Exhibit 77. He testified that after receiving that report, he summoned and recorded statements from the first accused, one Corporal Jane Gige, one PC Philip Otuoma, and one PC Mwaneki on the 16th of March 2016. He stated that he informed the three that he was investigating an offense of assault, illegal wounding, misuse of firearm, and threat to kill. PW35 confirmed that he received on the 7th of April 2016 a letter, Exhibit 6, from the Witness Protection Agency. It was dated 1st of April 2016, and it was seeking to know whether the second deceased was their witness. He said that he learned from IJM that they had approached Witness Protection Agency to assist the second deceased case. To assist with the second deceased case, he said that he wrote back to them a letter which was dated 11th of May 2016, signed by the CEO, Elema Halake, which was Exhibit 78. In the letter, he confirmed that the second deceased was a witness of serious assault, annexing the statements of the deceased to the said letters. He said that he learned later that the second deceased died the same year. Now, PW1 stated that Mr. Willie Kimani, the first deceased, brought the case of Josephat Mwenda, the second deceased, to the organization's attention. He stated that that was in April 2015 and that it was in connection with the criminal case number 226 of 2015, that is Exhibit 1A and B, before the Principal Magistrates Court in Mavoko. The case referred to involved the second deceased, who had been shot accidentally by the first accused person using his private firearm in the process of being arrested and later charged with being in possession of narcotics. PW1, as the lead advocate, assessed the case and gave recommendations that it could succeed and that it had also met the organization's ideals of defending victims of injustice. He stated that he took over the case as the head advocate and he applied for the type proceedings of the criminal case on the 29th of June 2015 and was issued with the same, where he found that the second deceased had been charged with gambling in a field and being in possession of cannabis sativa. PW1 stated that on the 27th of December 2015, the second deceased gave a statement with the IJM recorded by the first deceased, in which he claimed that the now deceased OCS of Nolongo had threatened him and warned him to withdraw the shooting complaint against the first accused, with a failure to which the first accused would kill him. That the very next day, he, that is the second deceased, was charged with the traffic offenses in traffic case number 1650 of 2015. He said that he looked at the merits of the case and recommended that the evidence seemed fabricated against the second deceased and that IJM should represent him. He said that the case was allocated to him to defend and that he made an oral application seeking to be supplied with the type proceedings of the traffic case, which were provided. He stated that the criminal case number 226 of 2015 proceeded on the 16th of February 2016, which was the first date given for the hearing of the criminal case. It proceeded before Honorable Mumasaba in chambers. PW1 stated that the first accused hearing testified in cross-examination, which PW1 personally conducted, the first accused admitted shooting the second deceased using his private firearm while on police operation, that he confirmed taking the second deceased to a private hospital with his private vehicle, and that PW1 stated that the admissions are at page 14 of the proceedings of that day. He testified that the case was adjourned to 24th of April 2016, and that as they left court on the first floor after the matter was adjourned, Himself and the 3 accused persons in the case, including the second deceased, were accosted by police officers who shoved them down the stairs. He said that the police officers informed him that they wanted to take the 3 accused persons so that they could help them in investigations of a crime that had been committed in Meru. PW1 stated that he insisted that any questions to his clients should be put to them in his presence, that as the officers escorted them to their vehicle outside Mavoko Court, they met with the first accused at the entrance of the court building, and that the first accused nodded at the police officers that had arrested them, who nodded back. PW1 stated that they were taken to Ad River CID offices, where they were kept waiting for about 45 minutes, after which Mr. Mudhe, one of the police officers, returned the identification cards of all the accused persons and let them go. PW1 stated that on the 29th of February 2016, they went back to the court in connection with the traffic case, and that he informed the court of the happenings of the 16th of February 2016. And he further stated that he had also written a letter to Inspector General of Police concerning the intimidation they had received on the said date. The letter was dated 24th of February 2016. Now, PW13 stated that PW13 was the director of casework at IJM, where he oversaw the day-to-day operations of the casework department, including the legal department, investigation, and aftercare departments. PW13 narrated the historical aspect of the second disease complaint and the steps IJM had taken to help him. Now, he stated that in the course of the hearings of the 2 cases against the second disease, he drafted letters to the Inspector General of Police and IPOA after PW1 and the second disease were arrested after a court session on the 16th of December 2016, 16th of February 2016. He produced the letter dated 24th of February 2016 addressed to the IG as exhibit number 3, in which he was asking for the suspension of the first accused in order to pave way for independent investigations into the allegations the second deceased herein had made against him. He also produced a letter dated 24th of February 2016 addressed to Witness Protection Agency as Exhibit 4, whereby he was requesting the agency to admit the second deceased into their program. PW13 stated that he received a letter from Witness Protection dated 1st of March 2016, which was Exhibit 5, which made reference to his letter of 24th of February. He further stated that he received a letter, Exhibit 6, dated 1st of April 2016, in which he was copied, and the main addressee was the CEO IPOA from Witness Protection, asking IPOA to confirm whether the second disease was fit for witness protection. Now, I conclude that bit by saying that I find no contradiction in the accounts of the statement by the second disease as narrated by the various witnesses. I find that the prosecution has established beyond any doubt that the second disease was harassed by the first accused and his boss, the then OCS Mlolongo, Chief Inspector Wambogo, and other police officers, arresting him just outside his house in the second instant and charging him for offenses which he could not have committed, as all the witnesses, that is PW1, 4, and 5, among others, are all in agreement that he could no longer ride any motorcycle or do any work at the time. So I must end by saying that the second disease deserved action from IPOA and protection from Witness Protection, whose vehicles painfully ground too slowly, which proved fatal to the deceased. Now, the other issue is whether the prosecution has proved motive, and it is appropriate at this juncture to consider whether the prosecution proved motive, and the prosecution has set out facts to answer the issue whether there was any motive for the murder of the deceased persons in this case. The accused persons denied any involvement with the murder of the deceased persons, Mr. Ombeta for the first and second accused urged that the second accused did not know any of the deceased persons, never met them, and could not have had any ill motive for any of them. As for the first accused, the learned counsel urged that there was no evidence, direct or otherwise, to prove that the first accused had a motive to commit the murders. Mr. Ombeta urged that Exhibit 24, the investigation diary of the 27th of June 2016, shows that the first accused was stated to be a suspect, yet at the time no statement, no confession, and no data had been obtained. Learned counsel urged that the IJM and investigation team operated on suspicion without any evidence. Now, I have quoted Choge versus Republic on the issue of motive. The prosecution has adduced evidence to show the second deceased made complaints against the first deceased. The second deceased made complaints against the first accused of a shooting incident on the 10th of April 2015 in which he shot the second deceased. The second deceased made to kill made against the second deceased on the 13th of December 2015, at the same time when additional charges were preferred against him. Although he denies threat to kill the second deceased, the first accused does not deny the two incidents took place and that they culminated with the two cases filed against the second deceased person at Mavoko Law Courts. Indeed, in the criminal case, whose proceedings were Exhibit 1B, the first accused, in cross-examination by PW1, admitted shooting the second deceased using his private firearm while on official duty. He also admitted driving the second deceased to a private hospital using his private vehicle, and admitted that he locked him up in police cells a whole weekend, even though he was suffering severe bullet injuries inflicted by him. In addition, no police action was taken regarding the shooting incident, no spent cartridges collected as exhibits from the lockers in court, no P3 form issued to the victim, and no police file opened for the investigations. Not to mention the other ills of taking the victim to a private facility instead of a main hospital for specialized treatment, despite recommendation by the private doctors who saw the second deceased at the river, considering the seriousness of the injury where a bullet hit the victim, piercing through the upper arm, and secondly, and significantly, piercing through the chest from the lateral to the posterior region. These were serious injuries. Indeed, the evidence of PW1, 4, and 5 were clear that the second deceased had not recovered from these injuries and could no longer perform any work 1 year after the shooting. Now, bearing these facts in mind, bearing in mind also that IJM had taken over the cases against the second deceased and were defending him in court, when the first accused and his colleagues were summoned by IPOA to give statements on the 16th of March 2016, it must have dawned on the first accused how serious the matter had become. I find that these facts cogently and firmly establish that the first accused had developed a personal vendetta against the second deceased. I find that these facts establish that the first accused had a reason to silence the second deceased. His job was on the line, and actions towards realization of that fact were underway through IPOA. In regard to Mr. Ombeta's suspicion that there was, submissions that there was suspicion against his client even before any investigations had been carried out and before the bodies of the deceased had been found, he urged that the investigations were carried out to justify the arrest of the first accused. Counsel pointed fingers against PW5 of IJM as one who instigated that suspicion. That is not an accurate diagnosis. The evidence before the court shows clearly that the second deceased had filed a complaint against the first accused with IPOA, and that this agency did not take up the investigations immediately. When nothing seemed to happen is when the second deceased approached IJM for help, and this agency, that is IJM, acted more swiftly, even taking the second deceased out of his environment and offered him protection and legal and psychosocial support for 6 months before he was murdered. IJM had a clearer picture of the second deceased dilemma and had a lot of first-hand information regarding the experiences of the second deceased at the hands of the police. And from that standpoint, whatever PW5 said about the case was reasonable. In regard to motive, I find that the threat to loss of his employment was serious enough to have caused the first accused person anxiety and must have driven him to plan the attack on the second deceased. Of all the accused persons in this case, the first accused is the only person charged in this case who had a motive to harm the second deceased. The harm to the first and the third deceased was collateral damage just because they happened to have been there when the second deceased was kidnapped. I find that even though it is not a requirement for it to be proved, the prosecution proved motive as against the first accused. Now, whether the retracted confession of the fifth accused has any probative value, so before I consider this issue of the probative value of the statement and the inquiry taken from the fifth accused, it is expedient to give a summary of the statement. Now, in his confession, the fifth accused gave his phone number, contacts, that is 0727-433-431 and 0795845584. He stated that he resided within Waithaka and that he was a police informer and that he was recruited by the OCS Lele, who was PW20 in the case, in April 2011, who was at the time based in Kabete. The fifth accused stated that sometimes in April 2016, he went to Mlolongo police station to meet PW20 after he learned that he had been transferred to Mlolongo. He said that PW20 introduced him to 3 police officers in the SPIV team. He stated that he visited Mlolongo police station on several occasions after that and became acquainted with the first accused, that sometimes in early May 2016, the first accused approached him and informed him that a thug that he had shot and injured wanted him to lose his job, that in the last week of May 2016, he stated that the first accused called him on phone and that they met at Connections Bar in Mlolongo, where the first accused told him that there was someone who had reported him to IPOA and that his case was coming up on the 23rd of June 2016 and that they must act on that day. He stated that on the 22nd of June 2016, he met the first accused at the police canteen at Mlolongo police station, where the first accused told him that he wanted him to follow the subject person after his case, his court case, and update him, that is the first accused, on all his movements. The first accused gave him a mobile number to use, but he could not recall the phone number. That on the material day, that is on the 23rd of June 2016, he left his house at 5:30, arrived at Mlolongo at 7:30. On his way to the Mlolongo police station, he met the first accused, who was driving a white Nissan Wing Road, registration number KBF. That the first accused introduced the lady as the person who would assist him identify the subject person. He stated that the first accused dropped him at a bus stop at Mlolongo, where they would board a matatu that would take them to Mavoko Locals. That at Mavoko Locals at around 9 a.m., the lady identified the subject matter person to him from a distance of about 5 to 6 meters. He stated that she told him, in quotes, "Kamutu yako ndio hiyo." The lady then left immediately. The fifth accused narrated how he communicated with the first accused the arrival of the second deceased to court, his movements up until 11 a.m. when the second deceased came out of the courtroom. The fifth accused stated that he called the first accused and informed him that the subject person had left the courtroom but was accompanied by another man. and had entered a vehicle that was parked in the court premises and sat in the rear passenger seat. The fifth accused stated that he went outside the court premises to where the first accused had parked his car and entered the rear passenger seat while the first accused was the driver and Sergeant Mwangi sat at the co-driver's seat. He stated that he knew Sergeant Mwangi because he worked with the first accused and that the first accused had told him that Sergeant Mwangi was part of the operation plan. They waited a few minutes, after which the vehicle where the subject person had entered drove past them with 3 occupants, that they followed the vehicle and caught up with it at the railway crossing. He stated that Sergeant Mwangi drew his police pocket phone and beckoned them to stop. Sergeant Mwangi told the 3 occupants that they were under arrest. The 3 occupants alighted from their vehicle and entered the first accused vehicle. The fifth accused stated that he took over their vehicle and drove it to Kwambera, where he abandoned it. He stated that the 3 deceased persons were taken to Syokimau AP post, that after he dumped the vehicle, he called the first accused who told him to find them at Mlolongo. The fifth accused stated that he linked up with the first accused and Sergeant Mwangi at Connections Bar in Mlolongo. At about 7 p.m., the first accused received a call from someone at Syokimau AP post who informed him that one of the victims had conducted his wife, that the first accused called an officer known as Kamenjo and asked him to make his way to the Syokimau police post, where he, the fifth accused, first accused and Sergeant Mwangi also proceeded and found Kamenjo already at the post waiting for them. The fifth accused stated that the first accused went inside a room, took the keys to the cells, opened the cell, and ordered the 3 victims to enter his vehicle, that is the wing road, that the Sergeant Mwangi handcuffed them while they were in the boot of the car, that he and Sergeant Mwangi entered the vehicle of the first accused, and the first accused drove, with Kamenjo following behind them closely in his car, a Toyota NZE, registration number KBU. The fifth accused stated that they drove to an area a few meters away from the highway where they discussed whether or not to kill the 3 victims for close to 3 hours. That at about 9 p.m., a police officer who was driving a probe box passed by and asked them to identify themselves. He stated that Kamenjo, who also had a police pocket phone, told the officer that there were police officers on duty. The fifth accused stated that at about 10 p.m., the second deceased was killed. He stated that he was strangled to death using a rope and a nylon paper. His body was put in a sack and put in the boot of the Toyota NZE. And at this time, the police officer who had earlier asked them to identify themselves passed by again on his way home. He was driving a probe box and he waved at them as he drove by. The fifth accused stated that at about 11 p.m., the second victim was removed from the boot of the wing road, taken to a different ground, not the same place the second deceased was killed. He stated that the second victim was killed in the same style as the second deceased. His body was put in 2 sacks as he was tall and could not fit into 1 sack. The 2 sacks were joined at the hip with a rope. His body was also put in the Toyota NZD. The third victim was also killed in the same style as the other 2. His body was put in a sack and placed in the boot of the wing road. The body of the first victim, that is the second deceased, was transferred from the Toyota NZD to the wing road. So the fifth accused stated that his role in this case was to look out and remove the victims from the wing road, hand them over to the Sergeant Mwangi, who in turn escorted the victims to the first accused, and Kamenjo, who where they were executed, where the execution took place.
Here the culture is barefoot. If you want to work here, you barefoot. If you don't want to barefoot, you can't be part of us. That's the culture. But if you go out of here, it's your choice. The earth has what is called an electrical pulse. This electrical pulse is what our body sinks into. And when our body sinks into this, we are able to optimize health and wellness.
To watch this story and more, download the Citizen Digital app today.
Kenya's #1 app, Citizen Digital.
Nyumbani ndio kila kitu.
Neno lenye uzito zaidi kuliko lolote. Nyumbani ndio shule yetu ya kwanza.
Nyumbani mafanikio yetu yanathaminiwa.
Nyumbani ni upendo.
Usambazaji wa upendo na kusaidiana kwa lolote lile.
Hata mambo yanapokuwa magumu. Nyumbani ni matumaini yetu.
Nyumbani ndio kila kitu. Ni furaha yetu, ni maisha yetu. Nyumbani ni kazini. Nyumbani ni ujuzi wetu. Nyumbani tunasherehekea talanta zetu.
Popote tuendapo, tuna uhakika tutalakiwa kwa furaha tunaporejea.
Nyumbani ni nguvu yetu, ni furaha yetu, ni maisha yetu. Tukileta